Oh, Jesus. Nobody needs to see me in the flesh.
like Pink Floyd. All right.
All right.
See, we have no one in the chat yet.
Well, do they know I'm on?
When they see your
I don't know.
picture-
Did you promote it?
I did not, so I feel like an ass now.
Maybe that's why they're not watching, because they see me.
Maybe. But if they knew you were wearing yoga pants, Chris, they might.
Exactly.
Oh, they are so comfortable, Jeff.
6 people are now in the chat, so people are joining us.
Oh, okay. Well,
you guys
hello.
missed a vivid conversation about yoga pants.
Yeah, yoga pants are surprisingly comfortable. Cool.
Look at these 4 handsome guys.
Thank you.
Tell you what, Aaron, if you weren't so far away, I'd come over and give you a hug.
Right. Yeah, it's almost been a year exactly since you guys were here.
I know, it's hard to believe.
Weeks.
Yeah.
I'll be going through withdrawals that week. It was like, it won't feel right.
I know. Aaron's birthday week, right?
Yep.
Yep.
And anniversary and my wife's birthday, it's all in the same week.
Wow, man. That sounds like a lot of work.
Yep.
Crazy.
Yeah, so I really I don't know, I wasn't sure if I was going to do a video about it or not, but I feel like I was pleasantly surprised with that Elvis movie is out, and I'm not like a huge Elvis fan, but I think the way that it was done, because my son and I were talking about, okay, which movie do you like better, Bohemian Rhapsody, Rocket Man, or this Elvis movie? And I'd probably say the Elvis movie, actually, and I think it's a lot has to do with like they keep it moving. There's a lot of montages, there's a lot of ground to cover because obviously he had a full interesting life, but they kept it moving, and they the Austin Butler's performance was amazing. I mean, even though in his face he doesn't look like Elvis, but once he's singing and doing the moves and talking, I mean, you'd swear it was Elvis. It's really uncanny.
What are
I've
your
seen
thoughts?
it twice. I've seen it twice now. That's how much I like it.
Wow.
What did you like Baz Luhrmann's other movies like Moulin Rouge and Romeo and Juliet?
Never seen them.
Well, let me tell you, Moulin Rouge is fantastic. Now, much like the Elvis movie, which I haven't seen, but many people have told me that the beginning of the Elvis movie takes you a little bit to get used to the style of directing. I took, at the time, my wife to go see Moulin Rouge, and she, in the first 10 minutes, wanted to walk out because it was so overwhelming for her. By the end of the movie, she's like, that's probably my favorite movie. Now, a lot of people know that movie because of Christina Aguilera's song. Don't be fooled by that song. So the movie is a musical, but it starts with David Bowie singing Nature Boy, that old song that I know, I'm trying to think, Nat King Cole sang, I think, Nature Boy. I think he had a big hit with it. And it is a musical, and it's about Ewan McGregor, and he falls in love with a prostitute, and it's fantastic. You got to see it. But I was wondering, because that director, people either love his movies or hate him, but it sounds like you loved it.
I loved it, and it's very much like the style you're describing, where the first 20 minutes of the movie, it's like a whirlwind because he just like you hit the ground running and he's off and he's, it's montage after montage on top of montage. And it's just really like fast paced. There's no moment where you're like, okay, this movie's dragging right now. And there's very few scenes, like actual scenes. A lot of it is either, performances, or then there's, it's got a very clever style of making a point, like where Elvis's influences came from and why he was so unique. And then kind of like later on when he was doing all these movies, like the whole 60s when he was making movies, I mean, he does it in about 5 minutes. He covers the early 60s when he was making all those movies, like in about 5 minutes. But the way he does it is just so brilliant because it just shows, how out of touch he was, because he was in Hollywood and making movies and not concentrating on what was going on politically or, just anything else going on musically. And it's just a really, really good movie. And it's 2.5 hours, but it doesn't seem that long, So, hey, Rachel, thanks for dropping in. And
Rachel.
What's up, Rachel?
Mike, as always, Mike, thanks for coming
Mike.
back. So tonight we are here. We're talking about our, I guess I want to say favorite 80s albums, but we're not just showing our favorite 80s albums. We're showing our favorite album from each year of the 80s, starting with 1980, going all the way through 1989. So we're going to pick one album, our favorite album from each particular year. This was not an easy exercise for me, just because there were so many compromises I had to make. And I know, like on our chat, you guys were talking about how, like, God, some of my favorite albums aren't even going to appear on this list, which seems strange, but the logic I totally understood, because when I was picking my albums, I'm like, oh, like for instance, Ghost in the Machine, one of my favorite albums of all time, is not representing 1982 for me, or 1981, I'm sorry, for me. And some, I love Dire Straits, Brothers in Arms, one of my favorite albums, but did not make my list. And I have a feeling the same holds true for you guys also.
Yeah, I mean, I could not believe that Peter Gabriel's So, Songs from the Big Chair, Master of Puppets, those, I'm not trying to give you spoilers, guys, but those didn't make my list, and it killed me. I could have put all of the first 4 Metallica albums. There's so many records that I left behind. I hate to say that, but we could have very easily done top 10 of 1980, and it would have been a struggle, or 81. So.
Well, I really messed up because I have 10 records from each year. I don't really. I do have my top 2, but I'll just show my top 1. Maybe the sneak in the second.
Well, I think this is the perfect topic too, Jeff, because I've been watching a lot of Stranger Things, like a lot of people have been doing, and I think now anything 80s is in. And I find myself even today, like I was going back, and if you search 1980, high school, whatever, like videos will come up that people shot in the 80s in their high school. So I'm watching these videos today, and I'm like going back in time, and I feel like I'm a kid again, and it's just bringing all that back. And I just realized, and I know that we're biased because we kind of grew up in that time, but it was a great time to grow up in. And I mean, I was born in 74. So, I was 14 and 15 in 89. So, I mean, yeah, I did grow up in the 80s. And I don't know, I guess my point is it was a great freaking decade.
Yeah, oh, yeah, I was born in 82, so I don't remember a whole lot.
Yeah. Did I do the math right? 85, 6, 7, 8. Yeah.
Yeah, no, but yeah, I mean, that's the nostalgia is a huge thing for me. Because when I play these records, I remember where I was when I bought it. I remember the feeling I had listening to it for the first time. I remember what time of year it was, what season it was, who my friends were at that time, the kind of car I own. I mean, all those feelings, like you say, just kind of come flooding back when, music's a great conduit for nostalgia.
I mean, it's a little different because like when I show a 1980 album, I was only 6 years old. So I know I wasn't listening to the album that I'm going to show when I was 6 years old. But looking back, it's almost sort of like looking back and kind of with what we know now too.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I mean, I know Jeff is a little bit older than all of us. So.
Well, we're the same age.
No, but so I was born in 1970, and so when the 80's hit, I was 10 years old, and so like junior high, high school, that's the 80's for me, and that was when I started getting into music. That's when I started buying records on my own for the first time, was the 80's.
Well, this is interesting because you and Aaron are the same age, right?
Hmm?
And Josh and I are the same age, which is pretty cool. So
yeah, so I mean, I'm sure Aaron and our collections are going to be totally like the same. I'm sure.
Yeah. I was worried about having the same records as you on this, Jeff.
Carbon copy.
Yeah, see, Aaron was a cool kid. I was a nerd. That's like the difference. But I'm sure, like with Aaron's pick, I'm sure I've heard of them, and even if I didn't own the records, I'm sure I knew of them or had seen them on MTV, the videos. Yeah, I was totally digging that Killers, that Iron Maiden record that I got this week, and I never heard any Paul Di'Anno Iron Maiden before, so I was like, yeah, this is I love that early 80's metal sound of that record. Which is like so different from, like Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, which is, only the third Iron Maiden album I'm familiar with. But, just the difference is really interesting.
Well, Killers is a badass album. I mean, look, the cover, you've got Eddie on the front. He's about to kick the shit out of somebody. And then Paul Di'Anno, he just had attitude when he sang. And I think what was cool about that is I know that Maiden was sort of like that whole new wave of British heavy metal was like anti-punk in a way, but Killers sort of has a punk vibe to it.
Mm-hmm.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, it definitely had a punk energy to it. You're so right, Chris. I love Paul Di'Anno era Maiden, yeah, man. The same year Killers came out, we also got Made in Japan, and that's fantastic too, Jeff. If you ever see that one, grab it. It's a live EP, but the versions on that EP are so killer. You just wish you had a full Di'Anno live album from back in the day. That would have been amazing.
I've got it on cassette.
Made in Japan.
I have a bootleg Made in Di'Anno era double live album.
Oh, nice. That must be fantastic.
Yeah, it's good.
And I just want to let all the kids know out there, because I know Metallica Master of Puppets is like big now because of TikTok and Stranger Things and all that. But I want to let the kids know that the four of us, we were there when Master of Puppets came out. We are the OG Metallica fans. Take that, Stranger Things.
Hey, listen, I agree with what Metallica said, because some Metallica fan, they said, Metallica, I'm sorry, you're gonna have to deal with all these posers, and they came out and had a statement that said, I don't care if you've been listening to Metallica for 40 minutes or 40 years, everybody's welcome. Yeah. And it's like, hell yeah, like who cares? I mean, I'm so glad children are listening to Metallica. I don't care how they discovered it. I don't care if it's because Metallica decided to put their song in a toilet paper commercial. If children are going to start listening to metal, I'm all for it. Like whatever way we can corrupt these children of the world, let's do it.
Well, it's funny because, you guys know my daughter is 17 years old, and she had sent me a video the other day, and I opened it up, and it was she and her friend, and they were headbanging to Master of Puppets. And I was like, yes. Like, I mean, like you were saying, Josh, it's cool that kids nowadays are discovering the music that we listen to.
Yeah, totally.
And liking it.
Yeah. And liking it. Yep.
Yeah. So
I'm totally happy for Kate Bush. I mean, that's incredible. She's got more success now than she ever had. It's awesome that people recognize such a talent.
Yeah, those royalties, I'm sure, are pouring in for her.
Good for her.
Well, the other thing too is kids are discovering music in different ways now. It's because of Stranger Things and TikTok and things like that, and that's how they're discovering it. But I mean, hey, whatever. At least they're discovering it. So
yeah, exactly.
It's funny because my son is such a hip hop head. He loves rap and hip hop. But like every once in a while, he'll be like, Dad, tell me about System of a Down, or tell me about Cool, or tell me about this. And, You know, the other day he bought Tool Anima, and it's like, all right. I mean, he bought Ozzy Osbourne, Diary of a Madman. He's like, Dad, what Ozzy should I buy? And it's like, hell yeah, kid. Like, I was so excited. Like, I paid for most of them. He had his own money, but I'm like, I'll pay for the Ozzy because I was so excited that he was getting it. You know, it's like, all right. And that's what I love is like, maybe they hear a little tiny clip and they're like, oh, that sounds good. And it's a lot different than we were kids. We had the magazines, the music magazines, MTV. You know, but a lot of times I bought the album based on the hype sticker, kind of like what was it you, Aaron, the other day, or was it you? Yeah, you, Aaron, bought something off the hype sticker. I was like, it works. Yeah, so very right.
Well, before we get into our list, I just want to kind of cover some comments that we've had. Mike says, our motto in the 80s, if some is good, more is better. Rachel got married in 1981, hashtag Ancient Mariner. Wow.
Awesome.
I was 11. I was 11 years old in 81. Jeez. Me, myself, and my vinyl. Hey, guy, finally caught a live one. Welcome. Mike got divorced in 88. Wrathchild. Yeah, I love that song. Which comes after an instrumental, which I think is, unusual for Iron Maiden to lead off an album with, I think that's their shortest track, maybe. Ides of March. Or the Ides of March, whatever. Best cover ever, agreed. And Tuco getting ready to go to solicitor show tonight. Rachel's on marriage too, but currently boasting 20 years with this one. Wow.
Oh, right.
Congrats. And Daddy Bog, thank the movies for including the old songs and making them popular again. Yep, absolutely. So, all right. Well, Chris, you want to start us off with the year? The year is 1980. It's a new decade. The 70s are over. Disco is starting to fade.
Yeah.
You're starting to get some new wave music.
And I'm a youngin'. I was only 6 in 1980. So, and I know that I was listening to this album when I was 6 years old. I know I was, but it's The Clash, Sandinista. And I was not listening to this when I was 6 years old, but this is slowly becoming one of my favorite Clash records. And you definitely, when you go into it, you guys know it's a beast of an album. I think the vinyl was like triple. It was like a triple vinyl.
Yeah.
But the reason I picked this was, the Clash, in my eyes at this time, really couldn't do wrong. And maybe some people would disagree with me. Maybe they would think that this album was kind of them veering off a little bit. But what I think is really cool about this album is that it has so many different genres of music on it. Like, I wouldn't have known what dub was if it wasn't for the Clash Sandinista. They do, of course, punk on here. They do rock, rockabilly. I almost feel like this album touched on a lot of different styles of the 80s. And the Clash sort of like introduced everybody and said, hey, this is what you're going to be hearing this next decade. It's just a really killer record. There's a lot of stuff on here. Is it a little overblown? Maybe, is there some filler on here? Yeah, probably. But I think it's a piece of art. And I think it's definitely one of those albums that, I think it could be looked at as a top album of 1980.
Well, and they had just come off a double album with London Calling, and then they go ahead and release a triple album. So, you want to talk about prolific.
Right. And then, of course, after this was Combat Rock, right? Where they had, all the hits and then Cut the Crap came after that. And we know all about that album.
Right.
But I don't know. Sandinista, I think just for the sheer fact of, like I said, it kind of introduced everybody to what they were going to be listening to in the 80s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they kind of were pointing the way forward.
Yeah. Sort of a foreshadow.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Mike got the spin, says he watched the Clash, just watched the Clash at the US Festival in 83. They were not happy.
They were not what?
Happy.
Who
Okay.
wasn't? The Clash wasn't happy?
Flash.
Yeah, I think they were on the verge of, they were kicking out Mick Jones, and there was some discord there within the band. But all right, Josh,
Okay.
1980.
1980, like Chris, this was not an album I listened to in 1980, but now it's absolutely one of my favorites. And that is Tom Waits, Heart Attack and Vine. This is the last of his early period. The 70s saw him as this drunken poet, and he went extremely avant-garde after this album. Him and his wife really dove into Captain Beefheart, and that's where you got Swordfish Trombones and Rain Dogs and all the fantastic oddities of the 80s. But this is almost like you feel like it should have been 79 and closed out the 70s. But it's one of my favorite Tom Waits albums. Songs like On the Nickel and Jersey Girl, which Springsteen had a big hit, Mr. Siegel, Saving All My Love for You. It's just such a fantastic album. I love the album cover, how it looks like an old newspaper. Very digestible when it comes to Tom Waits. So what I mean by that is if you're turned off by Tom Waits and his voice, this is probably the closest he came to like having like songs that can be played on the radio almost. I feel like Jersey Girl obviously was when Springsteen sang it, but just a fantastic album. And that is my choice for 1980, Tom Waits, Heart Attack and Vine.
Well, what I love about Tom Waits, and I'm going to put him in the category of a Leonard Cohen or a Frank Zappa or any of those guys, is that Tom Waits doesn't really give a shit about what's popular. He's just going to do what he's going to do. And I think, just his sound, he's so unique. And I like those artists that, and Tom Waits, I think, fits into this category. Like, I think you either like Tom Waits or you don't. I don't think there's a middle ground with Tom Waits, but that's what I like about him is he's brave enough to just put his music out there in the way he does, and just basically like, F it, I don't care this is who I am.
Exactly. Yeah, like he specifically would have people detune their guitars and like no, I don't like the way that sounds. Like, like he wanted it to sound kind of off kilter at times.
Yes.
Like it's not perfect. I love that about him.
Yeah.
Good choice.
Thank you.
So my choice has already been talked about, kind of. But my favorite album in 1980, first Iron Maiden. Love this record. And it was between this and this was a very close second. I got to sneak it in, Heaven and Hell, because I know it's not going to be shown. But those are my top two. But I had to go with this. And this is actually my second favorite Maiden record after this and Peace of Mind, probably tied. Although I love everything up to Seventh Son. But, starting with Prowler and going into the Iron Maiden, it's just everything is amazing on here. I really love Charlotte the Harlot. It's one of my favorites. And Strange World, the ballady type thing. Phantom of the Opera, Running Free. It's just, this just set it off that whole decade of Maiden. And love it. So that's my pick for Had to Go Metal, which all my picks probably will be.
Yeah.
It'll probably be hard rock.
Aaron, my number 2 choice was Iron Maiden. My number 3 was Heaven and Hell. No lie.
Yeah.
Like I
couldn't. Since I'm only on here like once a month or a month and a half, I got to show my number 2. Just so I won't talk about it.
You know what's
I knew
interesting
you were going to
too?
sneak in some second and third picks, Aaron.
Yeah, it's funny how Aaron starts just pulling. He gets to pull out like 3 or 4 albums for every choice. But what I was going to say was, it would have been interesting to hear Paul Di'Anno on Number of the Beast. Now, I'm not saying he would have been able to sing everything that Bruce did, but I just have this thought. I wonder if it would have been a heavier record with Paul Di'Anno on vocals.
It might have been. But, The Beast is a classic too. It's great. But
yeah,
it's almost like 2 different bands, almost like Van Halen with David Lee Roth and Sammy Hagar, where they're so different.
Yeah.
But, I really love the Paul Di'Anno era, and this and Killers are 2 of my very favorite Iron Maiden records. Always will be. Both of them are awesome. Sorry, I took your pick, Jeff.
All right. Well, luckily for you, I had a backup.
Right.
So my backup, the record that I'm going to show is, I first became aware of this not in 1980. It wasn't until I got cable and started watching MTV and saw the video for this song on it. And I think the video, unfortunately, does not do the song or the album justice. I think it kind of has the same sort of reaction that Thomas Dolby, She Blinded Me with Science got, where people were not going to take that record seriously after they saw the video. And I think a lot of people, very unfortunately, didn't take this album seriously because of the video for the lead-off single, which was Once in a Lifetime. I'm sure you guys are familiar with the video. David Byrne in full nerd mode. It was a single. It's probably the most commercial track on this record, but I don't think the band did themselves any favors with that kind of very quirky. I mean, it was memorable, so I suppose from that standpoint, maybe it broadened their audience a little bit. But this was definitely, on the previous album, Fear of Music, they had gotten into a little bit of some world music, like I Zimbra. You got some, world rhythms on that song, and they definitely branched out. I mean, their first two records were very strictly post-punk, and then they started branching out a little bit with Fear of Music, and then they went full-on world music with this record. But it's still got some great tracks on here. I mean, Cross-Eyed Painless is brilliant. I think Once in a Lifetime, I mean, the video notwithstanding, I think that's a brilliant track on here. The Listening, just tracks like that, which don't get played. Not a lot of people, even Talking Head fans, if they just have a greatest hits, are not all that familiar with some of the stuff on here. But this is a great, great album, and it kind of, at least for Talking Heads, kind of pointed in the direction that they would go on subsequent albums, notably Speaking in Tongues, Naked, parts of some of their other records as well. But, David Byrne, definitely, I feel like that was the album where David Byrne firmly kind of took control of Talking Heads, and whatever music they made from that point on, he was going to have the final, say about. But it's for people who only like Talking Heads hits, it's not an easy album to get into because it is so different. And the songs are so different from a lot of the other music in the Talking Heads catalog. But I think it's a brilliant album. And I think it's it is my favorite of 1980.
It's a fantastic.
I want to put Double Fantasy, just for sentimental reasons. But half of that shit is Yoko's stuff. So couldn't do it.
Your choice.
If you remove the Yoko. You want me to read some comments before Chris goes with his second pick?
Yeah, sure.
So let's see where we left off. We've got Mike's got the spins. Blizzard of Oz changed metal for me the first time hearing Crazy Train on the radio. It all changed everything. I totally agree. That would have made my top 5. Mike said great record, which I think he was talking about yours, Jeff. Me, Myself, and My Vinyl said I was hoping that Remain in Light was going to be chosen. As the Table Turns says 1981 Phil Collins Face Value. Gazin said, what have I missed? Well, Chris picked The Clash for his record. Aaron picked Iron Maiden. I picked Tom Waits, and then obviously you saw Jeff's pick. And are we going 1980 to 1989? Yes, that's what we're doing. And Rachel's Ghost, 1980 equals Double Fantasy for me. Maybe not best album, but important one, I think. So yeah. All right.
Cool.
All right. 1981.
All right. Well, Aaron sort of hinted to this album because he showed Heaven and Hell. I have always liked Mob Rules better. Nice. And I just think it's a better album. I think it's a heavier record, and this is my choice for 81. And I'm gonna say that just listen to a couple of these songs. The Sign of the Southern Cross has got to be one of the best vocal performances by Dio. And there's a little song on here called Country Girl, which is definitely in my top 10 Sabbath tunes. And I mean, The Mob Rules, the title track, is just a banger. And that's a scary ass cover, too. Like, I don't even know what the hell is going on that cover. But Mob Rules, I mean, I think they opened up the door. You know, when Heaven and Hell came out, of course, it was like a new era of Sabbath because, you know, it's been said so many times that, you know, the Ozzy years had kind of reached whatever they were going to reach. Ozzy was done. You bring in Dio from Rainbow, and it was like a new lease on life. Sabbath changed their sound, and Heaven and Hell was huge. And I think Mob Rules was just even a step better than that. And I know a lot of people are probably going to disagree with me, but I've always loved this record. And I can't even really tell you the reason why it's a step up than Heaven and Hell. It just grabs me a little bit more. So this is my pick for 81.
I feel like
they had, you know.
Go ahead, John.
I'm sorry, go ahead. I was just gonna say, you know, Ozzy got 8 albums with Sabbath. I think it would have been interesting if Dio had even had half that, you know. But
yeah, I was just gonna say that, you know, the song Heaven and Hell is my favorite Dio era song, but those two albums are so close. And like Sign of the Southern Cross is just so epic.
Yeah.
And so fantastic.
Like that riff in Country Girl, though. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know. It's just Tony Iommi almost, I think it's like when Dio came in, Iommi was almost like, you know, charged up again. And like suddenly these riffs came out of the ether and he was just ready to freaking kick ass again. So,
I agree. I think that's slightly better than Heaven and Hell, even though it didn't make my top 2. I do like it slightly better. It's just, they're neck and neck for me.
I feel, you know, and I think it's a little bit darker. Heaven and Hell has a brighter quality to it, if that makes any sense. I think Mob Rules is just a darker album, and that's maybe why I'm attracted to it. But
a little angrier.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of Dio, that Holy Diver remix, not remaster, remix comes out tomorrow. So
wow.
We'll have to hear it, see if it. I don't know why.
I don't know how they improve on it. They're just going to mess it up.
Yeah, the first.
I don't know. It's so good. I don't know how they can. I don't know.
You know, it's funny. I just want to say one more thing too. The first song, "Turn Up the Night," I think would have been a cool, like beer commercial song. They could still do it. They could still do it for like Miller Lite or Bud Light or something. Like "Turn Up the Night," I think would have been cool.
Well, didn't they use the Dio song on the I'm trying to think of the song, the Silver Mountain.
Oh, really?
Song. Wasn't that a beer song? They used it? I think so. All right.
Coors Light.
Yeah, Coors Light.
If I wouldn't get a copyright strike, I'd use it on Tuesday, but I'd be kicked off YouTube.
So I won't spend much time talking about my 1981 album because Jeff already talked about it, and I talked about it, and Aaron talked about it, and Chris talked about it at the beginning of the video. But one of the greatest of all time. Aaron, everything you said, ditto. I could have easily picked the first album. I love everything. I even love past Seven Son. You know, I like Fear of the Dark. I like No Prayer for the Dying. You know, but man, this album is so awesome. And as an adult, I love this album even more. I think when I was a kid, I was obsessed with, you know, the Live After Death, Power Slave era, just because there was kind of a mystique to it. Like looking through that book that came with Live After Death, and I'm thinking Bruce Dickinson's the greatest. But as I got older, I was like, man, these Paul Di'Anno albums kick ass. And now the two Di'Anno albums are probably my two favorite Maiden albums. But yeah, Killers, we talked a lot about it already, so I'll leave it there.
Well, and also picture this, like you're a freaking kid in 1981 and you walk into a record store and you see the Killers album. Like, even if you've never heard it, you want it as a kid. I mean, Eddie on the front with a hatchet and just, you know, it's going to kick ass.
You got to hide parents. It's one of those.
Yeah. Hey, my dad took me to the record store. I remember 1984. I was 10 years old. We were buying albums and I bought a Maiden album. And he said, I don't know what this sounds like, but that's got to be one of the greatest album covers I've ever seen. Like even my dad could appreciate it, you know. So
Yeah. Well, Chris, now you have to show Number of the Beast.
Yeah, I'm not going to show that album. It's a great album. And I always piss people off when I say this, but it's really not one of my favorite Maiden albums. I get it, and I understand why. It's a great album, but it's not one of my top Maiden albums.
Well, my choice here is my favorite album by this band. Absolutely love them, and every song on this, it's one of the best guitar records ever made. My choice for the best of 1981, Fair Warning from Van Halen. My favorite Van Halen. And, I know that's not the popular thing, but it's been my favorite Van Halen record for over 20 years, probably 30 years. It's just so raw and so heavy with Mean Street and Unchained. And my favorite song is Hear About It Later. Love that song. And I love the Sunday Afternoon in the Park, the instrumental. When I was a kid, the first time I heard it, my friend was playing it, and he had like an upstairs bedroom. And he came out of his bedroom, and we just eaten some psychedelic whatever things. So I was
mushrooms.
I was walking across the street and hearing it for the first time, really tripping out, and it just blew me away. I was like, "What is?" Didn't even know what it was. And he went in there and we listened to the whole record. And that's probably why it's my favorite record of them, just because of that, And we ended up listening to the whole thing again. And I just love this record. And it's, it's not their most commercial or commercially successful, but it's always been my favorite for years and years. And, I just love every song on it. And I think David Lee Roth and Eddie Van Halen, both of them, it's the peak of what they did. Eddie Van Halen was on fire on it, and David Lee Roth's vocals were just so good on it. I don't think he ever did better. I mean, Diver Down, they were both on fire too. But I love this. And that was if narrowly beat out. I'll just show it quickly. Those are my top two.
We love you, Aaron.
Yeah, that might be my favorite Van Halen album cover also.
Yeah, well, it's kind of a weird cover, but.
And you just showed my favorite Motley Crue record.
That's my favorite too, and it was tough not putting that in. But Fair Warning, I listen to it so much.
Even though I don't,
first couple of years going, that's on.
I don't think Vince Neil could sing Live Wire now if you put a gun to his head. Unfortunately. Yeah, I love.
There's no way they're not using tracks. And I honestly think Vince is using tracks on this new tour. And people say, well, he's not using tracks because it doesn't sound perfect. But he sounds dramatically better than he did 6 months ago. I mean, if you go listen to live videos, I can't imagine. He doesn't sound, you don't hear him breathing heavy and the winded. He's actually completing sentences. I honestly think they're using tracks, which at this point, whatever. But you know what? Most people are saying that Poison and Joan Jett are killing it. They're killing Def Leppard and Motley Crue. So
I believe it.
Yeah.
Even though I like both those other bands better, I can see it.
So we're showing a lot of hard rock and metal tonight. Surprise.
Yeah, I know. I feel like I'm, as usual, the odd one out because, Chris showing Mob Rules, Josh showing Killers, Aaron with Fair Warning. And I feel like I'm representing nerddom today because this is going to be my favorite album from 1981. Elvis Costello, his fifth album, his fourth with the Attractions. Part of his classic period, kind of the end of that early classic era. But Elvis Costello is just a fantastic songwriter, and the Attractions were just the perfect backing band for him. I love how it opens with Clubland, which is a great track. Then you got Lover's Walk. Strict Time is just a great piano-based rock track. Watch Your Step is great. From a Whisper to a Scream, which has got Glenn Tilbrook from Squeeze on it. There's 14 tracks on this album. I mean, name another album in 1981 that had that many tracks. That was like what the Beatles used to put on an album. But they're all, it's not one of these like bloated, like, oh my God, 14 is too much. I mean, they're all short tracks, but they all have melody. They all have hooks, great songwriting. And yeah, I think one of his most overlooked albums probably is Trust, because it doesn't have a sexy hit on it, like Accidents Will Happen or Every Day I Write the Book, or, some of his other, popular ones. But great album nonetheless. And I've been flying the Elvis Costello flag for a while, but that's my EC for the 80s.
Yeah, and From Whisper to a Scream is such a great song. I think that's a fantastic song, one of his best. And I'm so happy we're getting Gary into Elvis Costello. I think that he's way underrated. And I know that he was kind of an asshole early on in his career, but he owns up to it. And he says, like, hey, I was a dick, like he openly admits that he was a jerk to people. But
Gary or Elvis Costello?
Elvis Costello.
Oh, okay. All right.
So I could see why Gary was fantastic his whole life. But I could see why people don't like him if they heard all these things about him. You know what I mean? Like he was rude to reporters but he owns up to it that he was a jerk. Don't let that affect his music is fantastic.
Yeah, well, he kind of had that punk attitude, where he's
Right.
just kind of defiant and, he's
Right.
British. So I think he had a little bit of a, Sex Pistol snarl a little bit to his attitude. But, he looked like a modern day Buddy Holly back then, with his glasses, and he's wearing suits for the early part of his career and everything, and kind of had that awkward, he was kind of gangly, back then. But yeah, I remember seeing him it was some sort of like Friday night, show like they used to have back in the day, and remember seeing him on there. And I heard, no, I knew of Buddy Holly, but I'm like, who the hell is this guy? Like, what is this? He's trying to do like an impression of Buddy Holly or what? But little did I know he'd be one of my favorite artists years down the road. But
Well, you introduced me to that album that he did with of all the country songs.
I
can't remember what it's called.
Almost Blue.
Yeah, really good.
Yeah, that was the album right after Trust. So he totally went off brand for that record, but it's a good one too. All right, what do you got in comment? Any I know people got picks for 1981 in the comment section, probably. Josh, what do you use?
Let's take a look. I'm sorry. So, As the Table Turns says Anne Murray, Somebody's Waiting. Mike's Got the Spin says, look at the bottom. It says Kill Ozzy. I must have missed something. Maybe he's talking about the new cover of Holy Diver.
I think he's talking about Mob Rules.
Oh, Mob Rules. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Written in blood at the bottom of Mob Rules, it clearly says Kill Ozzy. Wow, that's crazy. Ray says his 1982 choice is Screaming for Vengeance. Mike says that Killer's cover sold millions of the album cover sold millions of records. Yeah, I betcha. CGC Vinyl says 1982 Scorpions Blackout. That's a great one. Gazin says 1981 Moving Pictures. Mike's Got the Spin says I saw the Scorpions on Blackout Tour. I made and opened the show on the Peace of Mind tour. That was a great show. As the Table Turns says Barry Manilow, I Should Love Again. Mike's Got the Spins. He's got three girls singing every song. Rachel said nice concert lineup. Gazin said he's glad to see Aaron on this week. Rachel's Ghost said 1981 choice would be Tattoo You. Ray says 1983 choice is Police Synchronicity. Mike says
we're not there yet. Slow down. Yep. Come on. We're not tonight. We're not even in 1982.
Yeah, slow down. Mike's Got the Spin said my name is true on that one. That's great. Music in the House says Sabbath, Maiden, Halen, Costello, all very cool. I was born and raised in Minnesota, and Prince. Controversy is my 1981 favorite. That's awesome. Ray says Ray's already got 1984, so we're going to skip that. Ray, we'll come back to it. Mike says he takes Prince. Vinyl Richie says he saw Elvis Costello in '79. That's fantastic. Mike loves Mob Rules. Music in the House, Journey Escape would be my number 2 pick from 1981. Vinyl Richie says 1982, Misfits Walk Among Us. Hell yeah. Not choosing the Misfits was extremely difficult. Miss 80s says, hey, everyone. So everyone say hey to Miss 80s. And Vinyl Richie says 1981, Damaged by Black Flag. Great album.
Yes.
All right. So here we go.
All right. Well, so what are we up to, Jeff? 1982? All right. So I've told this story before. I had a lot of skater friends when I was a kid, and I was not a skater. I was a poser, but I hung out with the skaters, and I started to take a liking to their music. So I started to move from metal into punk, and I was listening to the Circle Jerks and Black Flag and the Sex Pistols and all that stuff. And this little band that I'm going to show came out with an album in 1982, and I'm talking about the Dead Kennedys. And this is their album, Plastic Surgery Disasters, which happens to be my favorite Dead Kennedys record. But the Dead Kennedys, definitely a force to be reckoned with in the punk genre. But they were so much more than punk. You know, they definitely had a political edge. Jello Biafra was the lead singer. They brought in a surf aspect to their music. There was like a surf guitar. They brought in some humor. Like there's a song on here called Winnebago Warrior about traveling through, you know, the United States in a Winnebago and feeding Doritos to the bears. There's a great song on here called Forest Fire, which I turned my 15-year-old son onto. Now that's one of his favorite songs. But, you know, the Dead Kennedys just had their own unique sound. And, you know, they were one of those bands like Black Flag who pushed the punk envelope. They kind of tried to take punk as far as they could take it. And it was still punk. And Jello Biafra had such a unique vocal style. Like whenever he was singing, you knew it was him. You knew it was the Dead Kennedys. And I just love their record label too, Alternative Tentacles. It was just such a great label. Like I said, this is a great album, and this is my favorite of theirs, 1982.
Awesome.
Yeah. My favorite of them too.
Yeah, great band. I remember playing this as a kid, and my parents, of course, hated it. And I think I got it for my birthday one year. This was post 82. And I remember putting it on at the birthday party, and everybody was like, what the hell is this? And but I was just drawn to it, and still I love this record.
Yeah, awesome, man. Great pick. My next pick will not come as a surprise to anybody that watches anything I do, because everybody knows at this point that I love this album. To me, it's one of the greatest albums of all time, obviously, by picking it. And it was still a difficult choice, which is like hard to imagine that like one of my favorite albums of all time was difficult because there's so many great albums. But I'm going to go with Bruce Springsteen, Nebraska. It's, you know, there are 3 Springsteen albums that are always battling for my top spot. 2 of them were released in the 80s, so you might see another one. But this one, man, it's hard to beat this one. It's so incredible. You know, songs like State Trooper, Johnny 99, Atlantic City, My Father's House, Reason to Believe, Used Car. I remember growing up, we were pretty poor, and, you know, we didn't have new things. You know what I mean? It's like a lot of times it was like, you know, mom and dad buying you clothes that, like, you know, we went thrift shopping, things like that, like used cars, just trying to make ends meet. So I could really resonate with a song like Used Cars as a young adult, like when I heard it when I was a teenager, you know, because, you know, here's Springsteen talking about sitting in a car, and he's like, when the lottery I win, I ain't never going to buy you a used car again. Kind of like, you know, he aspires for something else outside that world. So yeah, it just really resonated with me. It's dark and disturbing and beautiful at the same time. So Springsteen, Nebraska, to me, one of the greatest albums of all time.
definitely an interesting left turn for Bruce Springsteen to do an all, acoustic album like that. I mean, that had to have definitely taken some people by surprise. Like, what is this?
Yeah, especially
wasn't it
after
also, it was recorded, wasn't it like just on like a 4-track or something like that?
Yep. Recorded on a 4-track. Born in the USA was originally on that album as like a very dark acoustic song. Yeah. And, The River had so many great rocking songs. But, that song, The River, could very easily fit on this album, and he's played that song acoustic. I mean, I'm sure if Gary was here, he'd pick that too. So.
And I know every time somebody shows that album, I say the same thing, but Johnny Cash ended up covering a couple songs off that album too. So
yep.
It's endorsed by Johnny Cash, which is cool.
Do you guys all own that album?
Oh, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this was an easy one for me. Preacher of the Night was my 82. Had to have a Kiss on here, and this is my favorite Kiss lineup, and it's only the second record with this lineup with Eric Carr, who's my favorite drummer, and then Ace Frehley. Even though he doesn't play a lot on it, this is a lot of it's Paul Stanley does a lot of it, but still it's my favorite lineup, and it's one of their heaviest records. War Machine's one of my favorite songs. I Still Love You is one of their best ballads they ever did. It's just so killer. Paul Stanley is never better than on that. I really love every song. Saint and Sinner. The title song, Preacher of the Night, is just all-time great, of course. And this is my only Kiss pick for this, though. Even though Kiss is my second favorite band, and this is my only Kiss one that made it. It's like I think they're one of my favorite bands, but for year-wise, that was the one. I had to go with Preacher of the Night for 82. Just slightly beating this out. Restless and Wild by Accept. It was really close.
Well, that was an important album for Kiss. They had to make that record. Yeah. And the thing is, and I've said this before, but I'm a huge fan of Dynasty, and I'm a huge fan of Unmasked, and I'm a huge fan of The Elder. But Kiss needed to get back to the heavy sound, and they needed to say, hey, listen, we are a hard rock band. And that's what Creatures of the Night was. It was sort of their like, you know what, we're here. We're going to take the 80s by storm, and don't give up on us yet.
Yeah, just that thundering drum sound that Eric Carr put on this. When you hear I Love It Loud, that drumming, just you crank that up, and it's just so awesome. And the drumming's like that through the whole record. He's just a monster on this record. That's why, it's one of the reasons I love it so much.
And I love Bruce Kulick. Imagine if Vinnie Vincent had stayed through the entire 80s. If he could have just conformed slightly, because the album was good, just as good.
He might have.
Yeah.
He did go write a couple songs. And Brian Adams wrote a song on there.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Kind of crazy. And Yo covered a song. Actually, they covered the BTO song, Rock and Roll Hell. Totally changed it. It's not even the same sounding at all. But yeah, I really love it. It's one of my favorites, obviously.
Didn't Anne Murray write I Love It Loud?
Oh, yeah.
No, it was Barry Manilow.
Oh, okay.
Engelbert Humperdinck.
It was Barry Manilow and Anne Murray are both in there. They were both mentioned, so I had to.
Yeah,
I'd love to hear Anne Murray sing I Love It Loud.
I think Creatures is their best album in the 80s. I absolutely love it. Yeah.
I think the best thing Anne Murray could do for her career at this point, if she still has one, is do a cover of just all full on, heavy metal.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, like
Animal. Wait, I'm gonna get back. Josh, Creatures is your favorite album? Kiss album?
Of the 80s.
Oh, of the 80s. Okay.
Of the 80s, yeah.
Right.
I got about 5 tied, but it's my favorite for that year.
Yeah, I mean, I love 80s Kiss. Like I even love Crazy Nights. So you can put your hate in the comments. I just love it.
I love Crazy Nights is great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, my pick is the band Chris has already talked about. And so I'm glad he didn't pick this one. But I'm going with the Clash and Combat Rock. This was probably their most, second to London Calling, their most commercial album. You had Rock the Casbah, which was the lead single off of here. Should I Stay or Should I Go? You still got some punk elements on here, you know, like Know Your Rights. Definitely kicks it off with a very much of a punk attitude. I think Car Jamming is great. You got Overpowered by Funk, which is actually kind of like a funky clash, almost like with a disco beat to it. I think you even have I forget the poet who is on here. Is it God, I can't think of his name, but I feel like it's on either, is it Inoculated City? I can't think of the poet who's
Yeah, I
on
think
this
so.
section. I forget who it was. I don't know. But anyway, it's a great Clash album. It's not a sellout. It's not, I mean, there are some commercial elements on here, but there's still enough of the old Clash. I think it's diverse in the same way that Sandinista, the album before this, was, had some diverse musical styles on it. It was the last album with Mick Jones. And the first Clash album I ever heard. So.
Well, plus it's got Rock the Casbah on it. So.
Exactly. My dad had that 45 when I was growing up, and it had Should I Stay or Should I Go on the flip side.
Yeah.
So.
Great songs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Speaking of Stranger Things, that's what got it started.
Is that right?
Should I Say or Should I Go? I think it was in the first episode, if I remember right.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely was.
What are we looking at for comments, Josh?
Okay, so Mike's got the spins at 1982. My pick, Ozzy, Diary of a Madman. What a fantastic album. Gotta love it. Gazin said, I guess he's commented to Ray, so that doesn't, I'll leave that one be. Rachel said 1982, English Settlement. Rachel, so glad. She's talking to Beth, sorry. 1982 from CGC Vinyl Guy, AC/DC, For Those About to Rock. Man, we love that album. Miss 80 said so many great albums in 1982. You're absolutely right. Me, myself, and my vinyl Kevin said Nebraska. He called it. He knew I was going to pick Nebraska. Steven says, Chris, is that an original pressing or reissue? So your Dead Kennedy, is that an OG press?
Yeah, it's an original pressing. It also has the booklet that comes with it too.
Nice.
So yeah.
I have an OG.
You have an OG too? Cool. Mike said he knew that I was going to pick Springsteen. And he said, great pick. Anyone going to mention Michael Jackson's Thriller in 1982? Thriller was everywhere in 1982. Absolutely. You know, Thriller as a kid, that was a huge album for me. No doubt about it.
I was pointing out Eddie Van Halen being on it, even back then.
Yeah, he was. Mike's got the spin. It says Kiss Creatures. That's awesome. Pete CD World said Creatures would be my 1982 album also.
Allen Ginsberg was the poet. I just looked it up on Wikipedia. He was the poet.
Oh, nice. Pete CD World says by Hot in the Shade, Vinnie Vincent would have not fit in it. Yeah, I think they would have had a different sound if he had stayed in it. Mike's got the spin, said Pat Boone did it. He did do the Anne Murray heavy metal treatment. Mike's in the house said, I need an entry point for Springsteen. I am a fan, but I truly don't know where to start. Born to Run and Darkness on the Edge of Town are his two probably most important albums. I would tell you to start there. But Nebraska, if you like solo acoustic stuff, totally listen to Nebraska. That's the way to go. All right, let's see. Prime Analog said, I know it's a controversial album this week, but what about Eye in the Sky? Rachel says Eye in the Sky is great.
Why is that controversial?
Because there is a video that was made talking about the jacket and how the jacket from MoFi's doesn't have the quality of like a Tone Poet or something like that. And then another YouTuber, I'm not naming YouTubers because I don't want to add to the controversy, kind of made a joke video about it where he said for $500, I'll sell you a special edition of the album cover. And he basically took aluminum foil and cut it out in the Eye in the Sky shape. So there's some, but you know what? I go back to what we say all the time. Like, sometimes people are just having fun. They're just poking fun. I don't think they're trying to start giant controversy, but who knows? Marcus says Allen Ginsberg was the poet. Primordio says Donald Fagen, the Nightfly. Music in the House says 1982, The Clash. But today I am leaning towards Kate Bush, The Dreaming. Man, you gotta love the Cash. Gotta love Kate Bush. And Robert Plant Pictures at 11 was Danny Walnuts. Primordio, Mike's got the spins. That's a good one. So yeah, all right, let's move forward.
All right, kids, 1983. I have vivid memories of seeing these videos from this band. It was probably some of the first videos that I had seen on MTV. And of course, you know, when we were growing up, MTV had just started. It was new. It was like, oh my God, I can see videos of bands. And I remember just being glued to the TV. And then it went on to Headbangers Ball and all that as well. But I'm going to go with this little gem from 1983, Pyromania. Yeah, you know, I like Hysteria. I do. Every time I listen to Hysteria, I think it's a great album. But I really dig pre-Hysteria with Pyromania, High and Dry, On Through the Night. It was still enough hard rock on this record to you know, for us hard rock fans. And I mean, the hits on here, Rock Rock Till You Drop, Photograph, Foolin', which is one of my top 5 Def Leppard tunes. I love the guitar riff in that song. Rock of Ages. It's again produced by Mutt Lange, who would go on to produce Shania Twain, of course. So it sounds fantastic. And I think Def Leppard was definitely one of those bands to help bring that hard rock sound to the masses. And Pyromania was a huge album in 1983.
Yeah, I remember I was 13 years old at the time, and I remember everybody loved Def Leppard. The videos were all over MTV. The first rock t-shirt I ever owned was a Def Leppard t-shirt back then. I mean, it was just, you couldn't escape it. They were the coolest band, I think, at least in my sphere of influence in 1983. And I mean, they really got a lot of people into heavy metal who were not heavy metal fans up to that point. So they kind of made heavy metal a little more mainstream, you know, and you had Quiet Riot as well that kind of helped that along, Twisted Sister. You know, you're starting to get these bands that kids who never would have listened to heavy metal before were like, oh, wait a minute, you know, this stuff is actually really good.
Well, that's why I don't know why Def Leppard tries to pretend that they weren't part of the new wave of British heavy metal, or that they weren't. I mean, I'm just going to use the term heavy metal because they were. I mean, they had that look. They dressed like it. They had the sound. Their album covers had that look. I mean, they were a hard rock, heavy metal, new wave of British heavy metal band. I mean, I know that they were also influenced by bands like Slade and some of those type of bands as well. But I mean, Def Leppard, don't deny it. You were a new wave of British heavy metal band.
I have a theory on that. You want to hear my theory?
Yes, I do.
They wanted to get into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I mean, getting into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, it's a proven fact that the catalog boosts. Like, they get a lot more exposure in the press. They sell a ton of albums. And there's only a few heavy metal bands in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And you can count Def Leppard, you can count Bon Jovi. But before that, it was Black Sabbath and Metallica. Yeah. So it's very difficult for metal bands to get into the Hall of Fame. So they kept trying to say, we're just a rock and roll band. But Chris, I just want to chime on this. You're absolutely right. Photograph comes on today. I crank the shit out of that in my car, and I'm singing along. I absolutely love it. The album gives me such good memories, just like Out in the Cellar by Rat, or those early 80s metals albums, the first Wasp album. I cannot get enough of it. And during the pandemic, when life sucked and everybody was stuck inside, I'd crank that shit because it would put me in such a good place. And it still does. That music just always makes me happy. It's the complete.
Wasn't Def Leppard one of the first bands to wear the British flag shirt too, the Union Jack, and then everybody started wearing that?
I
right?
think they wore it on their shorts too, man. Those
Oh yeah.
Rick Allen, the drummer, did. Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
I
mean-
was 13 when that came out, like Jeff, and I was a Beatles freak. And then the first 2 cassettes I bought was Pyromania and Metal Health. And that's what really got me into the harder rock. And still, Die Hard, The Hunter, and Billy's Got a Gun are my 2 favorites on there. I think I love those 2. But every song in that I still love, and it's arguably their best album. That one and High and Dry are really close for me, and that's a great choice.
And I keep joking about this, but I'm ready for the CD revival.
We got to get you that on vinyl though, because it's such a great album, man.
I thought I had this on vinyl. I have High and Dry on vinyl. I don't have this one.
Copies of it at one point. I've sold them all off except for my the box set.
I need one with the hype, and then I'll give you mine. Okay. My next one is one of the greatest albums of all time. Easy. It is easily one of the greatest albums of all time. It's a masterpiece. I love it. I listened to it the other day because I'm trying to make Brandon's video, but it's way too difficult. And that is Metallica, Kill 'Em All. Man, every time that I'm like, Ride the Lightning's my favorite Metallica album, or Master of Puppets is my favorite Metallica album. Hey, listen to this bad Larry. And I'm like, holy shit, this album is so good. And, I read an interview with Scott Ian, and Scott Ian said, he obviously was best friends with Cliff Burton. He said, Cliff Burton can't be understated because even though the songs say they're written by James Hetfield and Lars Ulrich, Cliff Burton had such a knack for saying it would sound more harmonious if we do it this way. Musically, if you do it this way, it'll sound better. And James Hetfield would tweak it. And I think that's why they have such a sonic jump from album to album. The more they listen to Cliff, the more you can see the evolution of the band. But man, this is such a great album. I just absolutely love it. I don't have to really talk about it. Everybody knows how great this is, but Kill 'Em All, that's my number one.
And when you watch clips of them on YouTube from that era, nobody could touch Metallica. They came out on stage and they were just madmen. Like James Hetfield has to be one of the most amazing rhythm guitar players. And I sometimes shit on Lars with his drumming, but you watch Lars back in the day, and even now, I'm not saying he's a terrible drummer, but I think I was starting to buy into this whole thing of Lars is not a good drummer thing that was going around. But he is a good drummer, and you watch those early clips of him, that guy could double bass with the best of them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I honestly think that it fit the band too. And musically, no matter what you say, and you look at Master of Puppets now, it's become a hit again, the song. There's something to be said about Metallica and those early albums. I mean, they changed music. There's no doubt about it. They are our generation's Black Sabbath. You know what I mean? It's Black Sabbath totally changed music. And you could say Metallica did the same. They took what came before Black Sabbath and Motorhead, and then they made it their own. And but they added such a level of precision in the studio. They may not have that same precision live, but it was just amazing. Yeah, and you'll see Metallica again on my list. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, well, I'm kind of with you, Josh. I mean, I really, I was late to the party getting into Metallica. The first I had been exposed to that album was, Aaron sent me that CD of Kill 'Em All. And I really expected that would be the one I would probably like the least, just because it was their first album. First album is usually more raw than the stuff that bands subsequently come out with. But, I got to say, I'm kind of a Kill 'Em All guy. I mean, I can appreciate Master of Puppets. I can appreciate Ride the Lightning, but it's just that album grabbed me. And I had that in my car for probably like a month straight, and just listened to it over and over. And I was like, God, this is fantastic. And, it wasn't too aggressive. It wasn't too heavy. It wasn't too raw. It wasn't too thrashy. It was like a lot of, kind of like early, like industrial stuff that I was kind of into in the early 80s, kind of reminded me of that. But yeah, that's an awesome pick.
And I especially like the later 80s version when they added Blitzkrieg and Am I Evil? And that just made it for me.
Oh, I agree. That's the version that I know most. So
Me
yeah,
too.
it's startling when I listen to the vinyl and I'm like,
I'm always waiting for those songs to come on.
yeah, totally.
Yeah. Great pick.
Thank you.
That was my two, because I knew someone else was going to. But my number one is another all-time, and you were talking about it earlier, Holy Diver.
Yes.
One of my favorite albums ever. Man, I never get sick of this record, and it just Vivian Campbell's guitar playing is so underrated on this. He's just masterful on it. It's every song. Rainbow in the Dark, the big hit, is probably my least favorite song on here, actually. Stuff like Don't Talk to Strangers, that should have been a huge hit. The song, Holy Diver kind of was too, though. Stand Up and Shout, all the way to Shame on the Night. Every song is a masterpiece, and I'm really worried about the remix.
Yeah.
I don't know how they can improve on this record. I mean, make it
Well, you
better.
got your OG copy. You
What's
got
that?
your OG copy. You got your OG copy. It's okay. It's not going away. You'll always have that one.
Yeah, I will. I'll buy the remix just to see. But I know it's going to bug me in parts. I just have a feeling because I'm so used to hearing this, and I remember hearing, being 15, driving around with my friends and playing this, and getting into trouble and whatever. But man, Invisible. I just love this album so much. Ronnie James Dio, one of my favorite singers, of course, and this and Kill 'Em All was a tough choice. So I'm glad you showed Kill 'Em All.
Awesome.
Well, I don't know if you know this, Aaron, but if you turn that album upside down, if you look at the Dio logo, you turn it upside down, it says Ozzy Blows. Just a little
Well, I can like Ronnie James.
Easter egg there. Yeah.
I like both of them. Yeah, I used to always, where's the devil at? But it's kind of weird because you don't really get the VIL in the last one, but
Yeah.
It's like you got to really work for the VIL in there.
I mean, it's like some of those Paul is dead clues on those Beatle records. It's like, well, does it really say that, or does it just look like it because you want it to look like it?
I love it.
And Vinny Appice on that drumming is amazing too. That's one of the best parts of the drumming.
Yeah.
My favorite drummer, Vinny Appice, is on that record.
Is that your favorite Dio
or
album?
Karma. What's up?
Is that your favorite Dio album?
Yes. Well, very close with Last in Line. They're like 1A and B. Yeah. Dream Evil's real close too. I love Dream Evil. And Lock Up the Wolves. Those are my two.
Strange Highways.
Yeah, that's a good one. And Sacred Heart is not quite as good, but it's still really good. I still love that.
It's a big drop from Last in Line. I mean, like
but then you go back and listen to it. There's some great stuff on there too.
Yeah.
It's all those are really good. It's just compared to Holy Diver and Last in Line, it just wasn't quite the same.
Exactly.
It's kind of like when Theater Motley Crue. It wasn't quite the same as Too Fast for Love and Shout at the Devil. It was still good, but just not quite the same feel.
Right. Yep.
A little more commercial, a little more keyboard added here and there, stuff like that.
I tell you what, I hope everybody out there is taking notes because we are dropping the fucking knowledge tonight. We are showing you guys albums that you need to have in your collection. So everybody should be taking notes right now, especially what Aaron's saying. Get Dio.
Get Dio. Lesson learned. Buy some Dio.
Yes.
All right. Well, the record I'm going to show, this almost seemed like out of step with the times in terms of it's, of course, it's going to be a new wave album, but it seemed very out of step with the times. And yet at the same time, I mean, this was the album in high school to own if you were cool. And I know, for you guys, it would probably be a different album. But for me, anyway, just being a fan of like new wave alternative. And I think, for me, their best known song is still, I think, just so iconic and such a new wave classic. I'm talking about the Violent Femmes and their debut album, Blister in the Sun, is just one of those songs where it's strictly acoustic based, very stripped down. I mean, you have a snare drum, that's the snare drum and brushes, is like the only percussion that you have. You've got a stand-up bass. It was just such a unique sound. And I think they were discovered maybe by Chrissie Hynde, if I'm not mistaken. like they were just playing on a street corner or something like that. And they're kind of like the Stray Cats a little bit, where it was just a trio. I mean, they didn't knock you over the head, at least on this album, with their instrumentation. And it was just so catchy. The lyrics, just kind of the whole disaffected youth and snotty, and kind of reminds me a little bit of like Chris, you've been showing some albums recently by the Dead Milkmen, kind of that whole like attitude, kind of predated even Bare Naked Ladies, which had some acoustic elements. But this was just a classic. I mean, you got Added Up on here, which is another, oh my God, they said the F word. I can't believe it. I love, like you got the xylophone on Gone Baby Gone. I saw the Violent Femmes open up for Echo and the Bunnymen about 5 or 6 years ago. And they still sound the way they did back then. I mean, they're a great little band, quirky to be sure. And I think they, have influenced bands, even like the Lumineers, who are still kind of doing that folky, acoustic kind of stuff, now. But Violent Femmes, I don't think anybody would have thought that this would catch fire the way that it did. But it's just an amazing, amazing album, one of the best of the 80s in terms of the new wave.
And I'm going to tell you right now, because I play Blister in the Sun live when I do like play out at bars and things like that. And whenever you play that lick, everybody goes, they all clap. And whether they know it's the Violent Femmes or not, everybody knows that freaking song. And so even in 2022, it's still, a great tune.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Is it on Stranger Things? That's the bar anymore.
That album actually I like a lot now, but back in the 80s, I had a group of friends that would always play it, and I was into my heavy metal. And I go, oh my God, that's the worst thing I've ever heard. That guy can't sing. His voice is cracking all over. And it's just so simple, and I couldn't stand it. And then the more I heard it, I ended up liking it, and it just grew on me. And now I have an original copy of the record. So it's growing on over the years.
The bass work on that is amazing.
Yeah, like on Kiss Off. I love that song, Kiss Off. I mean, that fretwork on the bass, that stand-up bass is just incredible. What do we get in the comment section, Josh?
So CJC Vinyl Guy says 1983 Quiet Riot, Mental Health, fantastic album. Anthony said Eddie Jobson, The Green Album, 1983. Music in the House, yes, Pyromania. My entry to Def Leppard, I think a lot of us, that's how we discovered Def Leppard and then went backwards. Mike's Got the Spins. MTV was on in my apartment 24/7 in the 80s. Pete's CD Vinyl World says Kill 'Em All. Mike's Got the Spins. Pyromania launched them into the mainstream. Kevin says Pyromania is one of my brother's favorite albums. Gazin says 83 Tie War by U2, REM Murmur. Man, I wanted to choose REM Murmur.
I know.
Yep.
But
very close. And I thought for sure Jeff would choose it, and that's what kind of steered me away too. Journey Frontiers, great album by Journey. Mike says Judas Priest got I can't even pronounce today. They got basically sent to the junior varsity version of the Hall of Fame. Yeah, that's right. I feel bad for Priest, but luckily they're at least being recognized. Rachel's Ghost says Pyromania is fantastic. Danny says U2 War. That's a great one. Prime Analog says Huey Lewis and the New Sports. I really do love sports. I know that they get picked on a lot. I know Aaron loves them. It's a great album. Music in the House says, does Walmart's vinyl Kill 'Em All sound good? To be honest with you, I don't have any of the Walmart. Okay, so Aaron says it does. Go get it.
Does it sound better than Saint Anger?
Does
different record. I don't know, the snare on Kill 'Em All is a little weird.
Well, the thing is, you would get your ass kicked, at least in my neighborhood in 1983, if you admitted to liking Huey Lewis and the News, because you were supposed to be liking Def Leppard and Quiet Riot and
I like both of them.
And bands like that. But like I had my little sports cassette, and I had to listen to it on my little Walkman, and not let anybody know what I was listening to, but
I was listening to Quiet Riot, Def Leppard, Huey Lewis, Greg Kihn, all of it at the same time.
Yeah, how can you not smile listening to sports? I mean, it is got to be one of the most fun albums of the 1980s.
Well, I also love the album that followed that, 4. And every time the song "Happy to Be Stuck with You" comes on, I'll sing that freaking. I love that song.
The album before Sports better than 4, though. Picture this. That was a great
one. Craig agrees. Sports is a great fun album. Craig says, "Oh, I see Defenders, my number one want right now." AZ Music Haven, Craig says Metallica Ride the Lightning is my favorite. We're going to get there. Craig says Holy Diver, awesome. It's a great pick. Holy Diver. People commenting that Ride the Lightning is awesome. Okay, I just want to make sure. I don't want to go too far ahead because people are starting to pick the next year. Yeah, okay, we'll wait.
1984. Chris was 10 years old.
Yeah. Can I go now?
Yeah.
Okay.
You may.
Craig, Chris, you get to read the comments next time.
Oh, I'm busting your chops. Okay, so I had to show this band, and they are one of my favorite bands. They sort of changed music for me as a kid. This album came out in 1984. It also changed punk as well. And I'm got to show Black Flag My War. All right, so let me just paint a picture here. The album Damaged came out in 1981, and I think somebody had mentioned that in the comments, like that could have been a top album for 1981, and it could have been, because Black Flag changed the face of punk with that album. 3 years passed between Damaged and My War. Black Flag was going through some lineup changes. They were going through some legal issues. And then this gem comes out, and it was so different than Damaged because there were more heavy metal leanings on this record. I think I like this album better than Damaged because I think Henry Rollins' vocals were more they were better on I can't think of a word. I'm just going to use the word better. They were better on this album than on seasoned. That's the word I was looking for. They're more seasoned than on Damage. Plus, side 2 totally threw the punk world, a wrench, because you've got 3 songs, Nothing Left Inside, 3 Nights, and Scream, that are basically slow, dirgy doom metal songs. So the punk kids were probably like, what in the world is Black Flag doing? But what they were doing is they were changing the face of punk, and they were basically saying, hey, you know what? We did Damage, but now we're going to do something completely different. And we're going to throw everybody a curveball here. And they did it right, because this album is just a classic, amazing album, even down to the cover artwork. I mean, 1984 had to go with Black Flag.
Well, and that was a pretty ballsy move because, back then you couldn't always afford to alienate your audience by changing direction, shaking things up. There he is.
Hey, guys.
Gary.
I just thought
Gary, we started at 8 o'clock.
Well, Jeff, what most of these guys don't know is that, you told me I couldn't come back on for 2 weeks. But I haven't seen Chris for a long time. So I wanted to pop in here, and I wanted to hear him talk about Black Flag, obviously. So I assume we're up to 1984.
Yes.
Well, thank God Gary's on now, because now all the girls are going to start watching.
No, now they're all gone.
The best looking guy of the group is here. But so and this is going out to Gary. I had to pick Black Flag, and you guys are probably sick of me talking about Black Flag. I've probably sent all of you at some point, hopefully, a Black Flag album. If I haven't, I will. But just a great band, and what I like about them is they kind of rode the rails of punk and heavy metal. And I've read interviews with Greg Gannon, the guitarist of Black Flag, and he was saying, and this is not joking, he and the band were listening to a lot of Dio at this time. So Metal had a huge influence on Black Flag. I know that Henry Rollins was a big Black Sabbath fan. So you heard that come out in their music.
They were also big Anne Murray fans. Henry Rollins.
They were. Henry Rollins is a huge Anne Murray fan.
All right, Gary, your pick for 1984.
Well, okay, so I don't have picks because I
Okay, so you're late. You don't have any picks. You're stealing our female audience.
I thought, how about if you guys all make your picks, and after each year, I'll just pick whatever was my favorite out of what you guys pick.
All right, that
Sounds good.
Okay.
And I'll just I just want to be here.
My 1984 pick is the same band as my 1983 pick. It's going to be Ride the Lightning. I remember being a kid and loving Metallica, and this is before Injustice for All, before One, when anybody knew who they were. And I remember forcing my father to listen to it. And I say to my father, my dad's big into classical music. I'm like, imagine it being classical music, Dad. I remember saying that to him because it just sounded like nothing I'd ever heard before. Like it was heavy metal. It was Black Sabbath, like I said, but especially the sonic leap that they made to this album. Songs like Creeping Death and, that dun, 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 dun. It just, I remember just getting chills. Like it was so heavy and so innovative and so amazing. And, those first 3 Metallica albums. I mean, I could talk all night about them, but yeah, Ride the Lightning. I just think it's a masterpiece. If someone said, hey, name 5 heavy metal albums, I've never listened to heavy metal before, you got to figure Kill 'Em All, Ride the Lightning, or Master of Puppets is going to be one of those 5. One of these 3 albums are going to be one of those 5. There's no doubt. But yeah, Ride the Lightning, my number 1 pick for 1984.
Well, this was a tough year for me because Ride the Lightning is my favorite Metallica record, but I had to show a Black Flag album. But Ride the Lightning, you're right. And I'm going to say this too. That was the album where they said, hey, we can sing a ballad too. And they did Fade to Black. And then you're like, wow, okay, so James Hetfield, he can actually sing. I love the intro to Fight Fire with Fire too, because it's that soothing sort of guitar thing. And you're like, yeah, this is going to be a great album. Like this kind of goes along with my Anne Murray collection. And then frickin' Fight Fire with Fire. They're heavy. That's their heaviest song. Fight Fire with Fire is their heaviest, fastest song. I want anybody to argue with me on that one because it is their heaviest, fastest song.
Well, I'm sure a lot of people bought the album thinking it was a yacht rock album based on the cover and the first, the opening, the intro to Fight Fire with Fire. They're like, yes, totally yacht rock. And then it's like,
do on to others as they've done to you. But what the hell is this world coming to? Yeah.
Yeah. I can table.
We might doing the but
love that.
I love it. Hey,
and then you Ride the Lightning and For Whom the Bell Tolls will follow that. It's like, what the?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Love it.
I think that since Gary doesn't have pick, why don't we have Gary do the comments from this point on too when we're all done?
Okay.
Yeah, you want to be our comment master?
Okay,
cool. I just want to hear Gary's voice.
Yes.
So again, you took my number 2, so that was great. Am I up now then? So what are we at? 1984, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
This album has been one of my favorite records since I was a teenager. The debut from Wasp. Absolutely love this. Every song is a masterpiece as far as I'm concerned. I love it all the way from, I Want to Be Somebody, Love Machine, Sleeping in the Fire. Every song I love on this. The School Days. And this is innovative in its own way, too. It's kind of like the shock rock. It's like Alice Cooper, but heavier in a way. but mixed with some more stuff. Great musicianship. And Blackie Lawless has one of the best vocal styles in heavy metal, and I love his lyrics. And this has always been one of my favorite records, and it always will be. And just amazing. They took Alice Cooper and went like times 10, and then Marilyn Manson took it from them and went a little further. But it's not even about that. It's about the music. And every song, just every time I hear this, I get in a good mood. It makes me happy.
Yeah, I agree.
And
it's like I'll listen to a mellow record, I'll get all depressed, put this on, I'm happy. It's kind of weird.
Yeah. Say what you want about Wasp, but Blackie Lawless, I mean, that guy could sing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And he makes really melodic. People think Wasp is just all heavy, but there's so much melody in their music that people aren't expecting until they hear it.
Yeah.
It's kind of amazing how it's almost like Beatlesque in a way. The hooks, the kind of the melodies he gets. I'm not comparing them to the Beatles, but I'm just saying, kind of has that thing where they have the vocals that are so melodic, like stick in your head.
We should really analyze the lyrics of F Like a Beast. And just
that wasn't quite on, but yeah.
I think there's some hidden meanings in that song.
You remember when Jeff used to he made the movies? He'd take a song and make a movie.
Yeah.
If you do Animal, we'd be all set.
Yeah.
He did one.
Yeah, I may have to revive that one. Well, I always feel like when we're doing these kinds of videos, like I'm the guy who shows up to the funeral in the clown costume because I'm just totally out of place. We got Metallica, we got Black Flag, we got Wasp. Depeche Mode, anybody?
Yes.
Anyone?
Yeah. Woo!
All right. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, 1984, and Black Celebration was up there for my 1985 pick. I had Music for the Masses for 1987, but I'm only going to pick one band per year. So, but I got to feel like this was the breakthrough album for Depeche Mode. You have People Are People on here. Blasphemous Rumors is on here. Master and Servant, kind of. Martin Gore was not afraid to tackle very controversial subject matter, whether it is, talking about religion and, how can a loving God perpetrate, such misery on people, and S&M, with Master and Servant, and People Are People, almost like a protest song. But this really kind of established, at least in North America, Depeche Mode, one of the first Depeche Mode albums that I owned. And, I still enjoy it today. It's got, Somebody, one of my favorite ballads, because it's just so sweet and sentimental up until like the last line, where the guy you realize has just been bullshitting some girl that he wants to get into bed with and telling her everything that she wants to hear. And then the last line is, the things like this make me sick. Everything that he said before makes him sick. But in a case like this, I'll get away with it. It's just such a classic Martin Gore line, because you're thinking throughout the whole song, like, oh, or at least if you're a teenage girl, like, oh, it's so beautiful. And then, I think it's lost on a lot of people, like where there's that little like knife at the end of it, where it's like, this song is not what you think it is. But yeah, love this record. Not my favorite Depeche Mode album, but I think it's the one that got most people back in the 80s into Depeche Mode, and established, a lot of their fan base, at least over here in the States.
That's a great record. Love that record. Somebody should be my theme song.
It can be. You can adopt it. You can have an intro. Have an intro. Chris, create an intro for your channel and use that as the
yes.
Song.
Let's do it.
Master and Servant. I'm not
all
smart
black
enough
and
to
white. You kind of staring out a window, looking wistfully into the distance.
Aww.
Kind of like how Sammy Hagar looks when he's writing a song,
Okay, you want me to read comments?
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, first off, out of your guys's, I would have picked Ride the Lightning, but my own personal pick would have been Defenders of the Faith by Judas
Nice.
Priest.
Great.
Christian CGC, the vinyl guy, says 1984. I picked Rat Out of the Cellar. Great album, start to finish.
There.
Pete, Metallica own their masters and press their own albums. They sound great. Maybe you read these. I don't know.
No.
Rachel has left. She said, "Got to run. Great picks and a top tier discussion, guys. Enjoyed this." Gazing at the Moon says, "I'll pass on Huey." Haha. Rod says, "Black Flag." Art Room Records. Hey guys, I'm at Boy Scout camp, but wanted to pop in and say hi to all.
Good job.
Gazing at the Moon. 84 would be Ocean Rain, Echo and the Bunnymen.
That is a great one.
Prime Analog Records says Don Henley, Building the Perfect Beast. That's a good record. Craig, I'm sure there was a Rod McEwen album in 1984, Chris. Rod says Suicidal Tendencies was a big one for me in the 80s. Got a couple people saying hi to me.
What Suicidal album came out in 84?
He just says in the 80s.
Oh.
Rod's
went
the
from
happy hippie. He might be off a little bit. We don't know. Prime Analog Records, Michael Ruff, Once in a Lifetime. Wham, Make It Big. Vinyl Richie says Side 2 didn't throw LA Punks by surprise because we saw them perform those slow, boring songs live.
That's what I love about Vinyl Richie is he just says it like it is. And if you're not subscribed to Vinyl Richie, check him out. I mean, he's got an amazing record collection, amazing punk albums, but plus, like he's saying, he's seen all these guys live. So Vinyl Richie, thank you for watching and commenting.
Craig,
Richie.
Queensryche Warning. Rod again says, when I saw Black Flag, Henry looked like Ozzy. Vinyl Richie, 81, 82 was the best live Black Flag lineup. Mike agreed, probably my favorite Metallica album. Music in the House, as I cried a tear, you wiped it dry, Anne Marie Kills. Metallica, CGC vinyl guy. Metallica was highly influenced by Pablo Cruz, I read.
Nice.
Me, Myself, My Vinyl. Twisted Sister, Stay Hungry album cover, and We're Not Gonna Take It stuck out in my memory for 84. Dee Snider and the makeup scared me as a kid.
Oh, yeah.
What else we got? Craig Likes My Shirt. Music in the House. I'm grateful to learn more where I should dig into metal and punk. Thank you, Chris, Josh, and Aaron. For me, in 1984, The Smiths, Hatful of Hollow is such a great album for me. That would be my pick.
That would have been my top 5.
Vinyl Richie agrees with that pick. Mike says, I'm still going with 1984 Van Halen. And Rod says, Vinyl Richie is the man. Okay, now you're all caught up.
Nice.
All right. So we are up to 1985, correct? Yes.
Yep.
All right. So this is going to be a different sort of pick for me. I've been showing a lot of punk and metal, and this album, obviously came out in 85 because we're talking about 1985. This album sort of came out without any fanfare. And it was almost like one of those things where a lot of us didn't realize it was actually out because the album before it was huge. The album before this was Purple Rain. So now we all know who I'm talking about here. Prince. And one of my favorite albums, and I think is top for me in 85, was Around the World in a Day. And I remember having this as a kid, buying it, and it was so different than Purple Rain was. Purple Rain was, basically Prince showing his guitar skills off, and almost Prince kind of channeling the hard rock that was popular at the time. And we all know Prince was an amazing guitarist. This album was a little bit more subdued. And basically what Prince did is he went psychedelic. So the whole album has a psychedelic vibe to it, even down to the cover art. This had the huge hit Raspberry Beret, which another song that's when that song comes on, I sing along to it all the time. Paisley Park, which was the name of his record label, he's got a song on here called Paisley Park. The title track Around the World in a Day is the psychedelic masterpiece. There was another hit on here called Pop Life. He's got a couple really strange rhythmic tunes with a song called Tambourine and America. And he would kind of continue this psychedelic thing with the next album. I think it was called Parade. I think, don't quote me on that, but it was so different than Purple Rain, but I dug it and I still dig it. And I definitely had to pick it for 1985.
Oh, right. Good pick, man. I own that album and it is great. It's so different than Purple Rain, though.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I'm not taking anything away from Purple Rain, but I find myself listening to Around the World in a Day more.
All right. Awesome.
All right.
So my next pick I don't own on vinyl, but Aaron's going to show it. So let me tell you that this is an album that I was obsessed with in 1985, like absolutely obsessed. And I think the reason why is because the vocals, the way I could compare it, it's like, Steve Perry, like the vocalist was so great, he could have been in any band, but he was in a thrash metal band. Aaron, if you want to show it, show the record. Spreading the Disease by Anthrax. Man, I got this album and I was obsessed. At that point, there were so many bands that were jarring for my number one. There was Rat, there was Kiss, there was Anthrax. And this album, man, songs like Armed and Dangerous, right? And like the best way I could describe it is like you listen to Armed and Dangerous and it starts off, it almost sounds like a Kiss song. Like you could envision Paul Stanley kind of singing the beginning of that song, and then it goes into complete thrash at the end, or something like Gung Ho, which is like almost like a Megadeth song, like complete speed metal. But most of all, I think why Anthrax really resonated with me, especially in this time period for Spreading the Disease, Among the Living, On the Man. They sing about comic books, they sing about horror movies, they sing about the Lone Justice, about the Clint Eastwood Western movies. My dad loved those movies. We're always watching them. So it's like they're all things that I could relate to as an 11-year-old boy. So in 1985, it was probably one of my favorite albums, and it still is. I absolutely love it. And thank you, Aaron, for showing it.
Yep.
That's a great.
I'm showing it. My number one too.
It's your number one?
Oh yeah.
Awesome.
I love this album. And my favorite song here is actually Medusa. I love that. It's like one of my favorite guitar riffs ever is Medusa. But, you're in Madhouse, the single is even great. And, AIR.
Yep.
I love this album so much. And Anthrax, for me, man, this era of Anthrax is almost like a different whole thing than like Megadeth, Metallica, Slayer. They were just had, like you're saying about the lyrics, it was just so different. They were their own thing. They're in the big four, but they're really kind of different. I think it should be kind of, I don't know. It's just, they just had their own style. And I love the horror movie stuff, like you were saying, that they put in there, and, comic books, all that. Amazing record. Every song is great.
Yeah. I mean, you think about it, I listened to it today, and like Medusa, right? Like, it's so, like, for someone like Scott Ian was forced to write lyrics because no one else wanted to do it. And you think about it, and it's simple. It's like, Medusa, she's killing you, Medusa with her eyes. Like, what simple lyrics, but it's so melodic compared to the thrashing riffs that are going behind it. And yeah, as an 11-year-old boy, like the Stephen King, like I'd be like, oh, this song's about The Stand. Dad, have you read The Stand? He's like, yeah, here it is. Go read it. And I'm like, the book is like this big, like, but like, yeah, I totally related to it. And you know, it's the same thing with SOD. Like I totally got into that album for the same reasons I got into the Anthrax album. And believe me, I'm freshman year in high school, I wore Anthrax Spreading the Disease shirt, and not one person went up to me and said, "Cool band." People didn't know what it was, and yeah, I mean, it's like I wore it like a badge of honor. And when they finally broke big with Bring the Noise, I was like, I can't believe they broke big with a cover of Public Enemy. You know, I love Public Enemy, but like, because I thought they were such a fantastic band, you know. But
Joey Belladonna was, you know, he was, before he was in Anthrax, he was singing Journey and Kansas.
Yeah.
That's what he was singing. And then he joined them, and it gave him a whole different level of,
Yeah.
you know, because the different vocals weren't just screaming, shouting, but singing. And it's amazing. Love this record. So that's
great pick.
Agreed on number one on that one.
Yeah.
Nice.
Cool. So is that both your picks?
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, mine is not any huge surprise. I mean, there was 85 was a great year, but for me, I mean, it came down to this album. And Look at the Height. Yes.
I know.
But yeah, my favorite album of 1985, one of my favorite albums of the 80s. You know, I bought it because I loved Everybody Wants to Rule the World and Shout, but it's really the deeper tracks for me. I mean, I love Head Over Heels is one of my favorite songs of the 1980s, but the deeper tracks like The Working Hour, which is almost kind of like a smooth jazz a little bit in a way. You got Mother's Talk, which is a bit more aggressive. You got kind of the piano ballad, I Believe, on here. Broken, which is more closer to the synth pop of their first album, but just a perfect, flawless album as far as I'm concerned anyway. And there was never going to be any other album for me in 1985, even though Brothers in Arms came very close. Black Celebration was up there for me. But it was always going to be Tears for Fears. So,
Jeff, I was positive you were going to pick that, and thank God, because I love that album so much. And actually, I love it more now than I loved it in the 80s. I love it more now. I mean, it's just an album that I've never gotten sick of.
Yeah, when you talk about growth, I mean, you know, their first album, The Hurting, was very much synth pop, very much new wave, you know, electronic drum machines. And then this is such a mature album. You just would never make the connection that the band that recorded The Hurting is the same one that recorded songs from The Big Chair. You know, and even Sowing the Seeds of Love, you know, is even a progression from this record. But yeah, I had to put it on there. That record means a lot to me, just because what I was going through at the time, and you know, where I was, you know, the place I was at in my life. Yeah, it really resonated with me then, and it still does today.
Awesome. Great picks. Okay. Well, my pick would have been Love by The Cult. Pretty
Great one.
Pretty big, wide range on that for me. Out of you guys, I like the Prince one the most.
Wait. What did you say? Your favorite one was what?
Prince.
Nice.
Hey, I like the song Rod. I like the song Raspberry Beret, but I've never listened to that album. Now I'm going to have to take your word on it, bro. Craig says Motley Crue, Theater of Pain, or Rats, Invasion of Your Privacy. I like both them. Yeah. Mike, Prince, hell yes. I have been listening to the Gold Experience for the last 3 weeks. It kicks ass. Sign of the Times is a great one also. Music in the House says Around the World is such a great album. I dig it too. Prime Analog Records, Sting's first solo record, The Dream of the Blue Turtles.
Great album.
Craig, okay, you bad Larrys, I have to go. Take care. See you. Gazing at the Moon also said The Cult, and he said Till Tuesday, Voices Carry. Prime Analog Records, Pat Metheny Group, The Falcon and the Snowman, original motion picture soundtrack. Bowie sings the title track. Ray, 1985, John Fogerty, Center Field.
Yes. Love that record.
Yeah. Mike's got the spins. I saw Anthrax open for Ozzy in 88 in Albany, Georgia. The Bible Belt people were marching outside. It was awesome.
Love it.
Prime Analog Records, says Brian Ferry, Boys and Girls.
Yeah.
Vinyl Richie, my favorite from 85 would most likely be Psycho Candy from Jesus and the Mary Chain.
Yes.
Great one.
Awesome.
Me, myself, my vinyl, my pick too, Jeff. One of my favorite albums too. Mike, Sowing the Seeds of Love. Music in the House, my favorite one as well, Jeff Witcher. Songs from the Big Chair is such a great sing-along record. Kate Bush, Hounds of Love would be number 2. Danny Walnut says, got to go with Prince too, but again, so many. Big Chair, Scarecrows, Sting, Scarecrow. Yeah.
Yeah, great one.
Prime Analogs has the, how do you say that? You guys, you know this one, Jeff. Scritty Politti.
Yeah, it's critical. Cupid Psyche, 85.
Yeah. Yep. So, and that's it. That's where we are.
All right. 1986.
1986.
I was 12 years old. And seems like just yesterday. So I am going to be showing my favorite Iron Maiden album, and this is the album that got me into them, and I still love this album. It is Somewhere in Time, and I got to thank Aaron. He sent me an OG copy of Somewhere in Time, so thank you, Aaron. And I mean, I've talked about this album before. Caught Somewhere in Time, Wasted Years. The side 2, you know, The Loneliness of the Long Distance Runner, that's a deep cut that is killer. Deja Vu, which, I mean, that's an amazing song. And then it ends with Alexander the Great. So you get another history lesson by Iron Maiden. And sometimes I kind of like Alexander the Great a little bit more than Rime of the Ancient Mariner. I think because it's a little shorter, it's a little punchier. And again, nothing against Rime of the Ancient Mariner. That's an amazing song. But Alexander the Great is as good. And like I said, maybe to me, even sometimes a little bit better. Love the cover art. I remember the cassette too. It would fold out into, it was like 25 different, like whatever. It was like an accordion that folded out. And you just open it up and you saw the whole landscape of that futuristic world. And then the guitar intro for Caught Somewhere in Time. And then that it just takes you to another world. And as a kid, that's what I wanted. Produced by Martin Birch. I mean, you know, classic Maiden. Love it.
I can tell right now, my pick is probably going to be a tie between Chris and Aaron's pick for this year.
Probably Chris's.
I don't. Well, maybe I'm guessing you wrong. We'll see.
I mean, Iron Maiden in 1986. That was the cool factor right there. I mean, Power Slave came out before this, of course, and then they did Live After Death, which is probably top 5 live albums of all time. And then Somewhere in Time comes out, and like they could do no wrong.
Yeah.
So, yeah, go ahead, Gary.
I was just gonna say I saw him on that tour. That was pretty great.
Look at how cool Eddie is here too.
I know.
Yeah, Maiden could do no wrong
my
to me, Chris. At that point, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, my favorite song that is "A Stranger in a Strange Land." That's just
so good.
You didn't even mention that. That's how good that record is.
Yeah. Love
yeah,
that
the only song that I can sometimes kind of do without is Heaven Can Wait. And the only reason is because the chorus, heaven can wait, heaven can wait, heaven can wait. It's like, it just keeps going and going and going. It's a good song, but that's the only song that's a little iffy for me. But yeah.
Great choice, dude. All right. My next one is one of my favorite albums of all time. Any genre of music, every single song is a masterpiece in my personal opinion. It is one of the best sounding records that I own. I own an OG press and a repress. They both sound incredible. And that's going to be Paul Simon, Graceland. Man, do I love this album. This is an album my dad would play a lot as a teenager when I was a kid. Songs like Boy in the Bubble, Graceland. I mean, that song Graceland, it breaks my heart every time I hear it, where that's that line. They say losing love is like a window into your heart. Everybody can see that you're blown apart. Everybody can see the way the wind blows. Love it, dude. It's just such a fantastic song. The Mississippi Delta is shining like a national guitar. Like the way he paints the picture. I Know What I Know. Gumbots, Diamonds on the Soles of Her Shoes. How it starts off with that little, him singing about the story. Then it goes into that funky bass line. You Can Call Me Al was the big hit. Probably my least favorite song. Under African Skies. Homeless, Crazy Love. That Was Your Mother. All Around the World. The Myth of Fingerprints. That last song, The Myth of Fingerprints, just blows me away. I absolutely love this album. I mean, if I had to get rid of my collection, they said, Josh, keep, 100 of your records, it's like, I know that this would easily make that list, it's just one of my favorite albums of all time. So great song.
You like Willie Nelson's cover of that song, the title track?
Yeah, I do. I mean, it's completely different, obviously, I feel like, but I do enjoy it.
How do you
great
think?
record, it surprised me.
How do you think Rhythm of Saints compares to that?
I don't even think it's the same ballpark, and I like it. To me, that's Paul Simon's best work. I'll take that over anything he's done before, even with Simon and Garfunkel. And I love Simon and Garfunkel. I just think that like the way he incorporated the African rhythms and it's just a perfect album. Like to me, it's absolutely perfect. And I know a lot of my heavy metal subscribers are probably like, Josh, this is one of the greatest years of heavy metal ever,
Yeah.
But it's just one of those albums that transcends, all genres for me,
Well, plus he had Chevy Chase in the video for You Can Call Me Al.
He did.
Yeah.
If he had Bill Murray, it would have even been better for me. All right. Thank you.
Yep. All right, Gary, I'm curious what you're thinking I'm going to pick, because I had one that was instantly what I was picking, and it's not this, but I thought Josh was going to pick this for sure.
Yeah.
No, I thought, you want me to, here's my guess.
Okay.
I think you're going to pick Peace Sells, but Who's Buying?
You mean this? Yeah. You're right. Okay, I didn't think you. All right, you know me pretty well. Yeah, this is just the album that got me really into thrash music, and it's just thrash music doesn't even do justice to what it really is. It's not. Yeah. It's just so complex and great songwriting. But Wake Up Dead, when I heard that for the first time, it was just so different than anything. Different than Metallica, different because it just, starts out and he's singing and it's like, oh, this is just typical thrash. Then it just goes into this long instrumental, almost the whole song is just instrumental. And it's just all these time changes and really killer stuff. And then it comes back with the vocals at the end. And that song still blows me away every time I hear it. You got The Conjuring, which is amazing. The title song, instantly catchy with that one of the best bass lines in heavy metal ever. And killer lyrics. Socially conscious, and then Good Morning Black Friday is probably my favorite song on here. I love that, where it's kind of mellow, then it gets real heavy. I love that. And this is the album that got me really into blues music. And that sounds weird, but they do a cover of I Ain't Superstitious. And when I first heard it, I was like, who's Willie Dixon? I didn't even know who Willie Dixon was. And then that made me look into Willie Dixon, and I started getting into blues music, and it came from Megadeth. So it's an amazing record and a lot of different levels for me. And that's my easy number one for 86.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because and this isn't a joke. I got into Joan Baez because of Judas Priest, because Judas Priest covered Diamonds and Rust. And that led me to Joan Baez. So it's funny how a metal band can kind of lead you to a different genre.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I can tell you that Master of Puppets, Peace Sells, and Somewhere in Time all had my initial list when I was trying to write it out just from the top of my head. So
The 86, I think I had 60 of them on my best of.
Yeah.
Probably 50. It was a crazy year. So many.
It was a
records.
hard year.
I didn't only like heavy metal from this era. It's just my favorite ones are the heavy metal, hard rock. But I like a lot of the other stuff too that you guys are all talking about.
Yeah.
Wasn't the video for Wake Up Dead? Weren't they behind like fences, like tall fences?
It was in an airplane hangar, and they were like fenced in. They had people outside the fence, and they were in there throwing bottles, beer bottles out, all kinds of stuff. Yeah,
kind of like the Blues Brothers when they're playing in the cage. Yeah,
yeah.
See, I'm not even really that big of a Megadeth fan, but to me, that album is a masterpiece. I mean, that's just a great, you like you just said, to call it a thrash album is underselling it, because like I'm not really a big thrash guy, but to me that's just a great heavy metal album. Like you said, the time signatures and stuff on there. It's just, I was the same way when I heard the song "Wake Up Dead." I'm like, holy shit, this song is freaking awesome, And to me, that's probably my favorite song on that album, and I just think that's a extremely great album.
Thank you, Gary.
So Gary, what's your choice for
Wait, Jeff's gonna go.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Don't skip Jeff.
Oh yeah, Jeff with his lame pick. It's not heavy metal.
Hey, mine wasn't metal, Jeff.
I know, but it was still cool.
Mine won't be. Mine's not going to be metal for 87. So
mine will.
All right. Well,
it's the 80s.
My pick. This band was a band that I got into in high school, and I remember listening to them for the first time. Like, what the fuck is this? Like, I've never heard anything that sounded like this band before. The singer was just like, kind of like a balladeer crooner almost, but the guitar tones were so pure and clear. I'm talking about the Smiths, The Queen is Dead, their masterpiece, one of the greatest albums of the 1980s. You got the title track, The Queen is Dead. And I love a track like There Is a Light That Never Goes Out with the chorus, if the double-decker bus crashes into us, to die by your side would be a heavenly way to die. It's like, who sings that? Who thinks about stuff like that, or Big Mouth Strikes Again, Cemetery Gates, where you've got two pretentious, I imagine snobs kind of arguing who's the better poet, Keats and Yeats, are on my side, you're on your side, but, Oscar Wilde is on my, it's like, what the hell, but it's just, it worked so great. This was such a seminal album from the 1980s. The Smiths, to me, I'm so happy I discovered them because, over the years, they've just been that band that I just keep going back to, keep gravitating towards. Johnny Marr is such a brilliant guitarist, Morrissey, a brilliant lyricist, and, some people can take or leave his vocal. I think his vocal style is very polarizing, but for me, the Smiths were like no other band in the 1980s. They're very British, but I love all things British. I love the UK. Wish I'd been born there, but at any rate, Queen is Dead is for me. I mean, that's the best.
Yeah, I mean, when you listen to that album, you want to just eat bangers and mash and fried fish.
Yeah.
Fish and chips.
Jeff, I love that album so much, and you're absolutely right. Like, There Is a Light That Never Goes Out is one of my favorite songs ever. I love Morrissey's vocals. I think they're great. And your album is tied into heavy metal because Phil from Pantera is a huge Smiths fan, and he openly admits that the song he wrote called Cemetery Gates was an homage to that Smiths song to sneak in. Like, he wanted to tell people like, hey, I'm a Smiths fan, but he knew like heavy metal fans probably wouldn't react well. So he's like, well, I'm going to name the song. I'm going to write a song, Cemetery Gates, to kind of see who can figure it out. But now he admits it, but I'm sure in the 80s it was a different climate.
Did Anthrax ever do a Smiths cover?
They did. Yep, they did. London.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep. So
awesome. Nice variety of picks, but Aaron wins that round. Ray says 1986 Queen, A Kind of Magic. That's a good one. Mike says, oh, great pick, Chris. CGC Vinyl Guy's yelling at me. He says, Gary, you missed my 1985 pick. He picked Born in the USA, but I'm pretty sure that's 1984. Rod, the Happy Hippie, Bruce Hornsby, and The Range came out with The Way It Is in 1986. Did not really appreciate that album or Bruce Hornsby until he started playing with the Grateful Dead. Prime Analog, Journey, Raised on Radio. CGC Vinyl Guy, 1986. Metallica, Master of Puppets. Prime Analog Records, 5150, Vinyl Richie, I Think So, by Peter Gabriel.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good one. Gazing at the Moon, 86, REM, Life's Rich Pageant, The Queen is Dead, Smiths, and Steve Winwood, Back in the Highlight. Okay, well, that's 3 picks. We're picking one here. So, Prime Analog, Toto, Fahrenheit, Mike, 5150, very good pick. CGC, I saw Van Halen 5150 tour in 1985. Bachman Turner Overdrive was the opening act. That's interesting. I can't read all that one. Let's see. Music and House of Percussion on Graceland brought me to want to learn more about African music. Prime Analog is jealous of CGC Vinyl Guy for seeing that concert. Mike's got the spins. He agrees with Vinyl Richie about the Peter Gabriel pick. He also likes Third Stage by Boston. Danny Walnuts, Tesla's First, but shout out to David Lee Roth, Feed 'em and Smile.
Yes.
Mike's got the spins. I have an autographed Megadeth CD I am going to send to you, Aaron, as soon as I know where to send it.
Oh, cool. Mike will get a hold of you. Thanks.
I'll give you my address.
Although he did just
It'll make it as Chris said on accident.
that message was just retracted. Maybe he's changing his mind. Prime Analog. This is Anita Baker's debut. Rapture. What a voice.
Yeah.
Prime Analog. Bananarama is amazing, Mike. Music in the House. Run DMC Raising Hell is such a great album for me. It was my gateway into rap and hip hop. Benjamin Orr, The Lace from Prime Analog. Hey, Randy Nelson's on here. Says it would be King of America by Elvis Costello or No Guru, No Method, No Teacher by Van Morrison. Blaine's World also says 5150. Gazing at the Moon says Love Ben Orr, great album. Mike says awesome. Number 1, The Offer stands. So there we go.
Awesome.
All right. 1987, right?
Yes.
Okay. I am not showing a metal album from 1987. I'm going to go into Jeff Witcher's wheelhouse here, and also Josh's wheelhouse, because I know he likes this band as well. Not my favorite album by this band, but I'm picking it for 1987 because this album kicks serious ass. Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me, The Cure. This and Disintegration. I know they're obvious choices, but this and Disintegration are my 2 favorite Cure records. What a beast of an album to come out in 87. And The Cure, and as I said, Jeff and Josh are huge Cure fans, I know. The Cure, talk about sort of morphine. Oh, there you go. The Cure sort of morphed and changed as the years went on into what became, I think, the sound that I like by them. And this is nothing against their earlier albums. I really like this era of The Cure, even following Disintegration with the album Wish. Wish was a great album as well. But this had Just Like Heaven on it, which, I mean, if there's such a thing as an anthem for the 80s, Just Like Heaven could definitely be in there. I love the tune Catch. I think it's a cool little slower song. They've got some jumpy poppy tunes on here. Why Can't I Be You? It ends with a heavy tune called Fight. And The Cure was really good about balancing the sort of gothy, artistic, poetic thing with the, you know what, we're just going to create a hit single for you. So Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me, killer record, 1987, had to show it.
Yeah, there's such a diversity. I mean, that's a double record, but there's such a diversity of style on there. I mean, you've got a sitar on If Only Tonight We Could Sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Hot, Hot, Hot is a great, like you say, the up-tempo kind of bouncy tracks. Just Like Heaven is an iconic 80s single.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, like just like a song like Cockatoos is just like so amazing. You know, The Snake Pit, I just could go on and on about, you know, just the different rhythms, the different vibes, the different textures on that record. That is my favorite Cure album, just because it runs the gamut of like everything, you know, and it sounds like their earlier stuff. It sounds like their poppier stuff. It's just such a smorgasbord of great music on that record.
And you were talking about Morrissey's vocals. I would put Robert Smith in that same category too. He has it either you like it or you don't, and I like his vocals. I think it just adds to the gothy quality of the music, and his stage performance when he would wear the makeup, and you could just kind of tell that he wasn't all there. And I like that about him. And he really got into the music. He was very artsy. He was very theatrical on stage. I loved when he wore the white high tops that were sort of untied.
Yeah.
I don't know. He just had this cool look to him with the spiky hair. I was always jealous of his hair. Still am. And,
yeah, it's kind of like Peter Gabriel when he was with Genesis, you know, when he had those like outrageous stage costumes in the early 70s.
And the Cure have gone on to influence so many bands. I mean, the band AFI, they're a punk band. They have cited the Cure as you know, a influence. Blink 182. Say what you want about Blink 182, but I know that they actually had Robert Smith sing on one of their albums. So you know, the Cure have sort of transcended a lot of different genres.
And Chris, I know you mentioned Kiss Me, Kiss Me and Disintegration, but I also say The Head in the Door, man. Those three albums are just so fantastic. Yeah. And I wouldn't, you know, you could tell me any one of those three are your favorite Cure album, and I couldn't argue. But, you know, like Jeff said, Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me, so diverse, such a double album. Yeah. I got into Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me was my first introduction to the Cure because a cool kid on the bus had it. And he was like, listen to this shit. And I was like, oh, man, it's fantastic. And then by the time Disintegration came out, I was obsessed. And yeah, it's just great band. Great pick.
And do you know where I got this record?
Purchase Street Records.
Yeah, I got this at Purchase Street Records on an epic record trip with Jeff and Josh. And I saw this. I'm like, yeah, I got to pick this up. So
yeah,
every time I listen to this, I'll be thinking about that trip.
Thanks, man. Well, you're gonna have to come down for the well, I can't say it on the video. I'll wait for the video to be over, but there's some big news for Purchase Street Records. Oh, cool. All right, so my next pick is not gonna be a surprise. I made a whole video on this album. I love this album. And I actually, there's some subscriber that will remain nameless who I think is fantastic. And they kind of dismissed the 1980s Bruce Springsteen output. And I said, you really need to hear this album because this is one of his best albums, and it's Tunnel of Love. Man, this album is so underrated, and it means everything to me. Songs like One Step Up, Two Faces, Tunnel of Love, Tougher Than the Rest. I mean, I'll be honest with you guys. I've been married. I've been divorced. I've been engaged. I've had every possible relationship you can imagine. I've had relationships that have ended well and relationships that have ended badly. And this album speaks to me. Anyone that's had dysfunctional relationships in their life, this album should speak to you. You know, songs like Brilliant Disguise, like we've all been there. I know some people have been married for decades, but imagine being single and meeting somebody new. and wondering, is this the real person or is this some sort of disguise I'm seeing? Like like, can I see the real you? And maybe you're wearing a slight disguise. You know, I've talked about this album ad nauseum. But I just love it so much. I really do. And Bruce Springsteen is such a great songwriter. And Kenny Chesney has gone and covered some of these songs. It's an album that I would think really probably inspired a lot of singer-songwriters and artists. It's a hidden gem in the Springsteen catalog. Go listen to it. So that's my pick.
Love it. Great album.
Excellent.
All right. So I was going to show my favorite Anthrax record, but I'm going to switch it.
Okay.
Because this is so close, and I've got so much Anthrax here going.
Yeah.
So,
wait, you're not going to show a Cure record, Aaron?
Probably not. So I'm going to go with this just because when this album came out, I was so into it, and I was so excited. It was a big comeback, and I was so excited for it. It was Fraley's Comet. I just love this. When I first heard Into the Night, saw that video, and it was the first time I saw Ace without makeup, and his guitar playing on this is amazing. And Todd Howard, the other singer, is really good too. His songs are amazing on here, like Calling to You and Something Moved. No, not Something Moved. What else did he sing on here? I can't even read it. The Rock Soldiers was Ace. That's how it leads off. That's a great song. But I love every song on this. The instrumental, I love this Fractured songs. It always has a Fractured 2, 3, 12. They're all really good instrumentals. And this just totally blew me away when it came out. And I still love it. It's my, this and Trouble Walking are my two favorite Ace records. I don't know. That's a toss up. I think Trouble Walking, just because he sings all of it, like slightly better. But Todd Howard was so good. He fits so well. Calling to You and Something Moved.
Yep.
Thing. And also Breakout. And Breakout was an interesting song because it was actually Eric Carr. If you listen to Car Jam on Revenge, that was an old instrumental thing that Eric Carr played, and it has a lot of this. That's where they took the song Breakout, came from that. It's co-written with Eric Carr. He wrote the basic music part of it. So I really love it, and I just think this is an amazing record. I still love it.
It's funny. I was using my Ace Frehley coaster tonight, which I think is pretty
nice.
Cool. Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's fate, Aaron. It's fate.
Yeah, man, Aaron, it's such a great pick. And I just remember being like, Ace Frehley's going to have a solo album, like the excitement of it, because he was just such a legend, and it's funny because to me in the 80s, Kiss might as well have started in the 60s because I was just like, I discovered the album through my dad's collection. I had no idea how old these guys were. You know what I mean? I was just like, obsessed as you guys were. And just, I would buy anything Kiss. Mm-hmm. But that paid off much better than the Peter Criss solo albums, in my opinion. So,
except the Chris Cat one was really good. That one that came out in the 90s. I really love that one. I need to get that on vinyl, but it's so hard to get.
And Chris, super expensive. Yeah, Chris is the man. He's got it. They'll repress it.
Mega Jeff just every time it's repressed, it just goes and it's like hundreds of dollars.
Yeah.
So I'll be on top of it.
So my pick for 1987, this isn't my favorite album by this band, but it was an album that broke them through to the mainstream. Up to this point, I'd been a fan of this band before this record, and I always felt like, God, nobody knows this band. So it's sort of, you feel like you have some kind of entitlement to this band, like they're my band, and they're kind of like a well-kept secret. And then all of a sudden they have an album that blows up, and now everybody's into this band that only an exclusive number of people were into. And I'm talking about REM, and this is their fifth album, Document. Up to that point, I was like, God, REM, nobody knew who the fuck REM were when I was listening to them, before this record. And I would try to turn people onto them, and they're like, whatever, and then, the one I love was on MTV. It was all over the radio, and suddenly everybody's an REM fan. They're on the cover of Rolling Stone. You know, they're getting videos played on MTV, and it sort of felt like, okay, well, now the secret's out of the bag, and a lot more people were digging REM. But it's still a great, great album. You got the One I Love on here. It's the End of the World as We Know It, and I Feel Fine. Was the other hit on here. Finest Work Song was a great lead off track on here. I love some of the gentle stuff. King of Birds, which, you know, could have been on Led Zeppelin 4. You know, just some great, great songs on here. And yeah, with their commercial breakthrough, it's still a solid, solid album. It's definitely my favorite album of 1987. I think it still holds up today. It's sort of that classic period of REM before you get into albums like Out of Time and Automatic for the People, where, you know, they're kind of softening their sound a little bit. But yeah, for me, Document, just a flawless album. Some people consider it their best. I think it's great, but you know, there's albums that a few albums I like a little bit better, but it's still solid REM, and, you know, it broke them through and kind of, you know, made them more of a household name than anyone ever expected that they would be. So
yeah, and you think about it, Jeff, just a few years later with Automatic for the People being probably the biggest band on the planet, or one of the biggest bands on the planet, and they didn't even tour, you know, like, for that album. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, the succession of fantastic, brilliant albums. And, you know, I like Murmur better than Out of Time, but Out of Time has such amazing songs too. I'm not trying to say it's a bad album, but yeah, it's, you know, Murmur is just a perfect album.
yeah, well, it's one of those albums when your friends are listening to it, you're like, I was into them way before this record. I was into them back when they, you know, reconstruction of the Fables, and but, you know, it doesn't really matter. You know, like you say, whether you've been into them for 40 minutes or 40 years, I'm glad you like them.
Yeah.
So,
yep.
Gary's already said he likes Document. That's his pick for 7. So
I do like Document. Quite a bit, actually. But JC wins this round. Okay.
I feel like we're playing Cards Against Humanity here, and like I'm always never fucking getting my.
Well, now I want to start changing my albums for these last two, because I'm trying to figure out an album that Gary is going to like.
Well, I think you might pick the next one, Chris, for next year. Okay, Ray. He picks U2, The Joshua Tree, Prime Analog Records, Isaac Hayes, Hot Buttered Soul. But he also picks George Michael, Faith.
Great album.
CGC, Bon Jovi, Slippery When Wet. Me, Myself, and Vinyl, Appetite for Destruction, hands down. Gazing at the Moon, Kick, In Excess.
Good one.
Prime Analog's picking more records. He picks Greg Allman Band, I'm No Angel. Mike's got the spin, says, Aaron, just get in touch with me, baby, and I will send it out. Prime Analog also says, he's talking to me, he's talking about Appetite's amazing. Music in the House, great album, Chris. What makes that Cure album so fun is that it's like a sampler of all of the preceding music that they had done to that point.
That's what Jeff said.
Yeah.
Well, Jeff is always right. So, Ray says Prime Analog, I'm No Angel was on my list for 87. Randall Nelson, Pleased to Meet Me by The Replacements.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Prime again says Sting, Nothing Like the Sun. Oh my God, says Gazing at the Moon. I forgot about I'm No Angel. Music in the House, Randall Nelson, great choice. Lionel Richie says 87 is too hard. Guns N' Roses, Sinead O'Connor, Terrence Trent D'Arby, and Big Black. Mike's got the spin, says Rock Soldiers. Blaine's World 36, Appetite. CGC likes Aaron's pick. Ace is the man. Music in the House. At Ray Cardo, Joshua Tree is another one of my favorites as well. So different from what U2 had done up to that point. Mike's got the spin. For me, Sign of the Times is the pick for 1987 because I'm still playing it today and the lyrics and music are still relevant. Randall Nelson, Document is my favorite REM album, and it could have been my pick. Gazing at the Moon says, I was going to add Document too, but I didn't want to catch hell from Gary. We'll see, but I actually I like that album. I like REM. Blaine's World 36. Document is a perfect record. Vinyl Richie, REM and The Cure are also great. Ray says REM is my next year's pick.
Nice.
A lot of people are mentioning Appetite for Destruction. That's a great record. But if I was going that route, I actually would have picked LA Guns. So I like that. I like their debut a little better, but I think they're both awesome.
Well, Gary, who said that REM is next year's pick?
Ray Accardo.
Ray, you and I are on the same wavelength. Now, listen, I don't have a vinyl copy of this to show, so Jeff is going to show it for me. Oh, there we go. REM Green, 1988. This was the album that got me into REM. I love the single Stand in the Place Where You Live. I love that song. I don't care what you say. But it's got some other great songs on it too. I love You Are the Everything. Orange Crush is such a great tune. I got my son into that song. World Leader Pretend. Just I love I think it was, Jeff was talking about how Document had some hit singles and things. Green, had even more hit singles, especially with Stand, and they just kept getting bigger and bigger as a band. There's just something about that album. I think too, this might be TMI for some people, but I remember making out with my girlfriend in her in her basement to the album. And Stand is kind of a hard song to make out to. Stand in the place where you live, but when You Are the Everything comes on, that's like setting the mood. Light some candles, I don't know. But anyway, my pick is REM Green.
Are you saying REM makes the panties drop?
Yeah, once Michael Stipe starts singing, I think, girls just want to take their clothes off.
Well, that's kind of that started, Peter Buck's love affair with the mandolin. Right. I mean, you got so many. You got The Wrong Child on there. You Are the Everything is on there. Hair Shirt has a mandolin. Yeah. Great tracks. I mean, I mentioned, Led Zeppelin 4. It kind of reminds me of the Battle of Evermore, the kind of that folky mandolin sound that REM had come to embrace, not only on this album, but also on the next two albums, Out of Time and Automatic for the People. But Green might be my favorite REM album.
Nice.
Such a one.
And I love when, this isn't the only album where his voice does this, but I love when Michael Stipe's voice it cracks, and he sort of, it just adds to the whole frailty of his vocals, and I just love that aspect of it.
Yeah.
And like you were saying, Jeff, I like how they started to bring in some more of that, the natural toned instruments and sort of the acoustic. Not that they didn't do it in prior albums, but Green, I think it started to really show with that record.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Hey, I got Jeff's endorsement.
All right.
Yeah.
Fantastic album.
Not that anybody cares, but yeah.
My pick is a prog metal masterpiece. I think easily one of my favorite metal albums of all time. And that's going to be Queensryche, Operation Mindcrime. Every single song on this, I absolutely love. So we had a blizzard last year, and I shoveled for 2 hours straight. And in my headphones, I listened to this album twice in a row. That's how much I loved it. And I just can't get enough of it. And I've heard it a bazillion times. Songs like Revolution Calling. That song just gets me pumped up. Spreading the Disease, a great one. I Don't Believe in Love, Eyes of a Stranger, just fantastic. Their band is firing on all cylinders. They actually opened for Metallica on this tour. So they gained a lot of new fans. That's how I discovered them. They actually released a box set, Operation Live Crime, where they did this in its entirety. Came with a VHS and a CD. I wish they would put that live album out. I know that they've released a modern day live album, but I want the classic, 1988 live album. But yeah, I love this album. If there's anybody out there that hasn't heard it, and maybe they know like Silent Lucidity, but they never really listened to Queensryche, this is a fantastic album to go check out. It's just great. And I do love Empire too. I love everything up to Empire. But this is just a masterpiece. So go check it out.
That's one of those records where it's better hearing the whole thing as a song than just pieces of it. It's explode. It's really good.
Now, Aaron, you can't pick that album. I know you and Josh contacted each other before this video, and you're like, "Oh, I'm going to show Operation Mindcrime. You should show it too." And I'm going to talk about Ride the Lightning. You should show it. So you can't show Operation Mindcrime.
Well, Aaron only knew my Spreading the Disease because I didn't own it. So I asked him to show it.
Actually, he was talking about that. I thought he was going to show this.
Oh, nice.
I didn't pick that either. So the reason I picked Ace Frehley on that last one, even though Among the Living is my favorite Anthrax record, is because for 88, this is my pick. And I love this record. And I love how it starts out with the cello on Be All End All. And it's like so dark. It's like almost more evil sounding than the guitar and all that. It's just so killer. And a lot of the band, they always say this album wasn't finished, but to me, it's one of their best albums. Make Me Laugh. I love that song. Antisocial, the cover song is really good too on here. But the ones I really love are like Now It's Dark, which is actually about the movie Blue Velvet. And it goes through that whole story of Blue Velvet. Very killer song. It just makes me crack up every time. And it's kind of evil and good. And just that whole story is really good. Then they got Misery Loves Company, which is based on the Stephen King book Misery. This is killer lyrics. And, just every song on this. Schism, I love. Finale. 13's a little weird. I like how they put the extra songs on this too, on the repress with Friggin' and the Riggin' and Parasite, especially Parasite, the Kiss song. And they do Pipeline, Ventures are on Anthrax. So, there you go. But this album, I was 18 when this came out, and me and my friends were obsessed with it. For that winter when it came out, that's pretty much all we were playing with this record, just the cassette. Driving around, we just, after school, we just drive till dark and listen to this and get in trouble. Not really, but
you did.
You do funny things on the windowsill, that thing. But yeah, I just love this record.
Didn't the original come with like a little sticker, a hologram?
Hologram.
Record is a hologram, yeah. I had an original press list, but it was missing that. So when this came out, I sold the original. I still want to get an original back with the hologram, but I just love this album, especially like Who Cares Wins too. Wow. But Make Me Laugh is about the evangelist. Really funny song too. A lot of bands were doing that at the time, talking about evangelists, and what a joke they are. But Be All End All. I saw them with John Bush, and they played Be All End All. I was so excited. It's just, I loved it.
Yeah, and
still played a killer.
Aaron, I know a lot of Anthrax fans jumped ship because they felt like it was too happy or whatever. I didn't think at all. Like, I just loved it. I just felt it was Anthrax being Anthrax. They were so different than Metallica, Megadeth, and Slayer anyways. And you're absolutely right. Be All End All. Now It's Dark. It's like those songs, like, man, I was obsessed with those from the jump. As soon as I heard that album the first time, I love those songs. Yeah.
Nice pick, Aaron.
All right, for my pick, I feel like this is a band that it's not cool to like anymore. Like, it used to be cool to like this band. People were not afraid to say that they were fans of this band. And now I feel like people are just, fuck that band. because their recent stuff has been so, out of the box for them, so off brand. They're trying to chase trends. They're trying to get back into the top 40. And I think they've compromised a lot of their musical integrity as a result. But nonetheless, their stuff in the 80s for me is just phenomenal. I could have picked any of their albums for any given year, but this was the pick that I felt like this was the year that I could show this band, and genuinely it would be my favorite album for that year. And I'm talking about U2 and Rattle and Hum. This is half live album, half studio album. It was the tour, the live tracks are from the tour that supported probably their best known album, maybe their masterpiece, The Joshua Tree. But you got, such a wide range of styles, and sort of the same idea as Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me, although there was no live material on that album. But you've got, soul music on here. You've got a duet with B.B. King. You've got, a reworking of I Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For, and Pride in the Name of Love. You got a great cover on there. You've got God Part 2, which is a sequel to John Lennon's track God from the Plastic Ono Band. You've got Desire, which is just a great, almost like I don't want to say rockabilly rock track, but it's just got kind of a driving rockabilly kind of rhythm to it. They do a cover of Helter Skelter to lead off the album. You got songs that would have fit very nicely on the Joshua Tree. And you've got some quirky stuff, but it's a mixed bag of material. I think it just shows U2's depth, their versatility. I think it's a great place to start for anybody who is wondering, well, what was all the fuss about U2 in the 80s? And yeah, I'm not a fan of much after, this album or Octung Baby. I would say I hate more of their albums after, these records than I love. But, Rattle and Hum for me was such a great album to own back in the day. And I think, it shows U2's influences, and they weren't afraid to pay homage to all the American artists that they admired and that they grew up listening to and that inspired them.
Yeah. That's a great pick. I think Rattle and Hum, what really makes that album so great is the studio tracks in that. I mean, yeah, it's cool to hear the other songs live. And like you said, they kind of reworked a couple of them, adding the gospel choir in and everything. But those studio songs on their own are just such great songs. And you talked about the quirky things like, Van Diemen's Land. And I love that song. All those studio songs on there, I think are terrific. And yeah, they did some, they had some great stuff after that, but I don't think they ever, got back to that point, to where they were with Rattle and Hum.
Yeah, no, I mean, they kind of burned their bridge with that album. All I Want Is You is another great track off there, very psychedelic, but that was the last time I think they ever sounded like that they ever kind of, sort of stayed true to that Americana style of music that they created. And then they, obviously an Octung Baby, great album. It was just completely different than anything they had done before. And unfortunately, I think that set them on a path where I thought, okay, maybe that'll be a one-off. Octung Baby, it's sort of an anomaly maybe in their catalog. But then they went for Zooropa, which was completely, further in that direction with the electronica, and then pop, which many people consider to be an abomination. And it was just too far in that direction. And I don't think they ever fully recovered. And, All That You Can't Leave Behind, it's a fine album. I don't think it holds a candle to any of their 80s albums or Octung Baby. And then after that, I think it's all hit or miss for me. And I dislike more of it than I actually like. But I still, if U2 had broken up after Octung Baby, I would say, they're one of the greatest bands of all time. But, I think they've hurt their legacy in the last decade or so by putting out mediocre albums. They strayed too far out of their lane, what made them great, and with mixed results. And, but Rattle and Hum, I think, was the last of the classic U2.
Yeah, I agree. Great picks. Jeff wins that round.
Yay!
I really thought Aaron was going to go with Seventh Son. But anyway.
That's my second.
Okay, CGC Vinyl Guy. He goes, you too, Rattle and Hum. Vinyl Richie says, LA Guns were boring live. Ray, Orange Crush. Randall Nelson says, oh, he's thanking Music in the House. Ray says that album had a vibe like nothing else at the time. Gazing at the Moon, 88, The Church, Starfish. And, oh, here's a good one. Jane's Addiction, Nothing Shocking. That's a great album.
Yeah.
CGC Vinyl. I saw REM on the Green Tour in Chicago. Robin Hitchcock was the opening act. Ray also says Rattle and Hum is awesome. Blaine's World 36, Green is a perfect record. Love REM. Mike's got the spins. 88 must have been a great year because I can't remember a damn thing. Randall Nelson, The Pogues, If I Should Fall from Grace with God. Prime Analog Records, Roberta Flack, Oasis. Blaine's World 36, my 88 pick is Jane's Addiction. Vinyl Richie says, gotta go. Good job, fellas. Then he says, who's Gary? Well, thank you very much. That's me. Mike's got the spins. Freaking great record. Jeff signed my copy. He's saying happy birthday to a girl on the casino bus at about 2 a.m. that night. It was awesome. Blaine's World 36. That's my favorite Anthrax album. Music in the House. 1987 pick for me would be he's talking about 87. The Waterboys, Fisherman Blues. Their live performance of the album was one of my favorite concerts of all time. Vinyl Richie said, Rush are great musicians, but they suck. No, that's your opinion. Prime Analog Records. Misery, star James Caan. R.I.P. Oh, he died today. Yeah. James Caan died today? Yes. Prime Analog Records. Yes. Rod says R.I.P. James. Ray, Angel of Harlem. Danny Walnuts, you guys showed my favorite, but I want to mention Keith Richards' Talk is Cheap. That's also good. Mike's got the spin, says Rush was an amazing band. Rod, Keith Richards, Randall Nelson. I like Fisherman Blues too. Here we go. Got it.
They shot Sonny on the Causeway.
Yeah.
All right, so
all right, we're down to our last year. Let's wrap this up. Chris is
all right,
on.
1989. I am going to show a band that I know Josh likes, and Aaron is getting into of them a lot lately. They are a Canadian band. They started out as strictly just a messy thrash band. Like, you listen to their first couple albums, not that they're not good, but they're just messy thrash. And they slowly started to morph into this proggy metal sounding band that nobody sounded like, nobody still sounds like. And this is their masterpiece, Nothing Face by Voivod, 1989. Nobody sounded like Voivod in 1989. Nobody still sounds like Voivod. They're still releasing albums. Their guitarist, Piggy, unfortunately passed away a number of years ago, but he helped to create their sort of space-like sound. It's almost like prog meets thrash meets outer space. And their lyrics are out there. I love, they all have nicknames. The vocalist's nickname is Snake. I love his vocals. And in the beginning, when they first started out, he was literally screaming. And then he slowly morphed into this, like, he has like this robotic tone to his voice, and it just matches the music perfectly. On this album, they're showing their prog roots. They cover Pink Floyd's Astronomy Domine. But the title track, Nothing Face, is just amazing. The album after this, Angel Rat, was just as good, even more proggy. And then they had an album called The Outer Limits, where they covered another Pink Floyd song. They covered a song called the Nile Song. So anybody who covers Pink Floyd rules. And Voivod, I can see why Aaron is getting into them, because they are an amazing band and more people should listen to Voivod. So 1989, Nothing Face. This was just reissued this past record store day. yeah, so there you go.
1989 was my first year in college, and I went to for my first year in college, I went to this tiny community college, Henry Ford Community College, and they had this newspaper, and you could just show up and just write for them. And I said, well, I'll write for entertainment, I'll do music reviews. And that was one of the records that they gave me to review. They had like a press release, and I don't know how they got these records from the record company or whatever, but that was the first I'd ever heard of Voivod. And so when I saw you show that record, I'm like, God, that looks so familiar. Why does that look familiar to me? And it's because I wrote this like stupid review for our campus newspaper back in the day.
I'd love
Did you give it a
favorable
review?
What was that?
Did you give it a good review, or did you?
I don't remember, because how many years ago? That's like 30 some years ago. I mean, I'm sure I loved it just because I love Pink Floyd. So I'm sure, I dug it based on that alone. I didn't keep any copies from back in the day, but yeah, I got to get that record, I guess.
Well, their first couple albums, I have them on CD. I think one is called Roar and another one is called War and Pain. Aaron might have them. I don't know. I have them on CD, but yeah, I just use the term messy thrash because it's just, they're still trying to find their sound. It's almost like the Meat Puppets' first record. I can't even listen to that album because it's just a mess. But they found their sound, and it's amazing that this is what they turned into. I mean, this is a proggy, just technical thrash, hard rock, heavy metal. Just they created their own sound. It's amazing.
And another interesting thing about them is Jason Newsted joined them for a little bit from Metallica.
Yeah. I mean, Voivod should have been bigger. Actually, it's probably good that they're not bigger because we can kind of have our own little Voivod club, but they're just a great band.
Kind of like Clutch.
Yeah.
All right. So, I mean, the late 80s was really hard for me to pick albums. Like, I mean, I'm still shocked I didn't pick Danzig's first album, and there's, so many great ones. And 89 was probably one of the hardest years. But I'll tell you that I was 15 years old. I finally had my own money because I had a paper route. In Massachusetts, you have to be 16 and a half to get a job. I couldn't wait to get a job, but I had a paper route. And I would watch Headbangers Ball, and then I would take money and go buy the album. And I owned the album from 1989 until I sold my collection. And then Aaron gifted me the album last year for either Christmas or my birthday. I forgot. But it's one of my favorite albums of all time. And that's going to be Dangerous Toys. What a fantastic album.
He knew.
Yeah.
You guys are on the same page.
Hello. From the moment I heard Scared was the first song I heard off this, I just fell in love with him. And this is my type of music. It's bluesy, hard rocking, heavy metal. They called it heavy metal back then. The kids nowadays, you wouldn't probably consider this heavy metal, but it's just hard rocking, sleazy music. I mean, the lyrics are not suitable for children in some places. But it probably made me like it even more as a 15-year-old, like Sporting a Woody. Like, it's like, hey, I could relate to that at 15 years old.
I can still relate to that.
I can still relate, luckily. Thank God. Thank you, God.
Yeah. I can just see Josh and Aaron. Josh is like, Aaron, like, this is earlier today. Josh is like, Aaron, can I FaceTime you? Listen, I'm going to show here are the albums I'm going to show. Dangerous Toys and freaking Rival. Can you show those albums too?
Yeah. Let's match up on this one and we'll divide it up on this other year.
Well, we'll act, but Aaron will act like we don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
I'm so shocked.
Yeah.
Now go look at my old videos. I'm picking the exact records from my old videos, so I'm not matching.
All right. Well, this is a great album. They should reissue it so I can buy it for you guys. It's awesome. Go check it out.
Yep. And that was, I had two, like I said, I have my top two here. That's one of my top two. That's why it was here. It's also my other one. So that. And that album, that means so much to me. I mean, I played that so much. That cassette, I wore it out, had to buy another one. It's just me and all my friends, there's nothing like, I mean, who writes songs like Bones in the Gutter where they're talking about, a lady a rich lady that they kill and put in a cement mixer to hide her body, and it's just crazy.
Well, Motorhead had Eat the Rich.
Yeah. Very true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
Broken
do it with
bones in the gutter.
Yeah, I love that song. So since you went with that one, I'll go with my other one. I'm going with the Headless Children.
Oh, I was going to show that too.
Yeah,
that's a great one.
This is where Wasp changed, and they went a little more adult. There's still some stuff that are early in here, but it's almost progressive at times. The song "The Heretic," "Lost Child" is amazing, and they even do the Who song "The Real Me," and I think they do it better than the Who. The bass in that is so killer. It's just, they rip it up. Johnny Rod on the bass, and Frankie Brinali does drums on this. He isn't pictured on the back, but he does the drums from Quiet Riot, and he's a monster on this. Even have like a slower song called Forever Free, and it's so good. And the drums on, when the drums kick in on that song, it just blows me away. Rebel in the FTG, but Mean Man, I mean, I love that song so much. It's about the guitarist, and it's so killer. The song, title song, Headless Children, this is a masterpiece of a record. And I have a one-track mind. I have so many records I love. I did have 60 records on this one for my best of, because I love like 60 records from this year that I have. And a lot of them aren't heavy metal, but these are my favorite ones. This is Dangerous Toys, easily. It was, those two are my favorite of that year. And
I thought Fred Corey played drums on that Wasp album.
Yeah, well, he only played Lion on it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I know he didn't play on Cinderella. Cozy Powell did. So I thought Fred Corey went on over to Wasp and played on that.
He didn't play on Cinderella's record, so the third one.
Yeah.
On that.
Well, okay, so now, but I feel like my world is being overturned and turned upside down. Did Fred Corey play on the Arcade albums or not?
I think he was on those. I'm pretty sure.
Okay, because
I think that was the ghost of John Bonham.
I feel like you guys are next going to tell me that Santa Claus doesn't exist.
Nobody would tell you that.
Okay.
No. Yeah, but if you guys haven't heard this record though, it's
a good album.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I love that song "Mean Man." I love the whole album, but "Mean Man."
Yeah. I know the Who fans out there are going to kill me for that, but I really do think their version of "The Real Me" is better. It's really, really good. The musicianship, it's killer on it.
It is a good remake.
Yeah. Well, just like Josh and Aaron have been on the same wavelength during this episode, I feel like Chris and I have been on the same wavelength. I mean, we both showed The Clash, we both showed REM, we both showed Iron Maiden. And so for my pick, again, this is a band that Chris showed for 1989. I feel, even though the album Chris showed is my favorite, this one, I think it's hard to argue, isn't their best album. Disintegration, just an incredible album. I mean, they saved the best for last almost, but, it sort of harkens back to an album like Pornography towards the early part of the 80s. So they were kind of coming full circle in some ways, but the radio hit was Love Song, but you got the title track Fascination Street, Disintegration. The title track is great. Pictures of You is amazing, but it's kind of the subject matter is depressing. It sounds a little dirge-like in some respects, but I don't know. I mean, I think Lullaby is a great track as well. It reminds you of some early Cure, but it's definitely a Cure sounding record. But I think it's where everything gelled. It's sort of like their Pet Sounds, if you will, where it was like, everything Robert Smith had envisioned for the band. I like it for the same reasons I like Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me. But just a great album. I think it's, definitely their best. Not my, it's funny because I say it's their best, not my favorite, because I do like Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me. But I mean, there's no arguing that's the high water mark for the Cure.
Well, I did a video a few days back about perfect albums, and The Cure Disintegration was on there. So that can definitely be put up there with perfect albums.
Mhm.
Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, Pitches is one of my favorite songs of all time. Love Song is a fantastic song I've never gotten sick of. Fascination Street. I mean, just so song after song after song, that album is a masterpiece.
Yeah.
Perfect
And
album.
it sets a mood, and the mood is set from the beginning, and then it just carries through the whole record. And it's amazing.
All
Love it.
right, Gary, what's your pick?
Sonic Temple by the Cult.
Damn it.
Yeah.
Not Voivod?
You know what? I don't know the band. All I know is you talking about them all the time here recently, and everybody's showing the record store day release, but I don't.
That's a
I'm
solid pick. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll go with Josh.
You know what would be great?
I would pick Dangerous Toys out of this, but that's just because I don't know the others as well. Well, I know the one.
And how awesome would it be? I was talking about commercials before, how I said Turn Up the Night by, Sabbath would have been a good beer commercial song. Sporting a Woody could be work for Viagra.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, how their sales would skyrocket,
They need to get that song on Stranger Things, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you think about it, men that were alive when this album was out could be suffering from erectile dysfunction.
Yes.
My brother blew my mind. He said, could you imagine if we could go back in time and show our grandfather just 30 minutes of commercials that they play on television now in 2022? It's like erection problems, like all the shit that they show. I think if you went back to the 60s or 70s and showed somebody, their head would just explode that this stuff is on television.
That would actually be a good video. Nobody can steal this idea. Well, Jeff, I'll let Jeff steal it. But songs that would make good commercials, like songs, that's actually a pretty good idea.
Yeah,
Jeff, I'll give you permission. You can do a video if you want on that. But
all right.
it'd be fun.
Yeah, it would. Cool. Well, this was a fun little exercise.
Yeah.
This was a hard video. I mean, narrowing it down in 1 week's time. And you guys showed so many great records. It was hard to pick.
I seriously would have picked 10 for each year if I could have.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you didn't.
Hard to
a lot of people are talking about Dr. Feelgood.
That's my favorite Motley Crue record.
Yeah.
I like it.
Tom Petty.
Yeah.
Full Moon Fever.
Yeah, that was in my top 10.
I feel like Dr. Feelgood was really good, but it hasn't aged as well as their first two records.
Yeah, not a big fan.
It doesn't touch their first two.
No.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that Kickstart My Heart is a fantastic song, right? Dr. Feelgood's a fantastic song, but they also have songs like She Goes Down, and that song did not age well.
No.
I'd
rather listen to Theater of Pain over.
Even Kickstart My Heart it's kind of like it loses its oomph to me a little bit, just because it's it's not a gimmick song, but it kind of is in a way, with the sounds at the beginning. I don't know. For me, it was so good, but then after you hear it over and over and over, it kind of loses its steam for me a little.
They kind of copied Montrose. Montrose did that revving of the engine, didn't they?
Yeah.
On their first.
Motor Scooter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Paul's Boutique.
Oh, nice.
Never forget that one.
Great radio controversy.
What?
Great radio controversy.
Oh yeah, that's a great one.
Oh, I love the first 3 Tesla albums. So fantastic.
I got drunk a couple Tuesdays ago, and my wife was here, and I played both those first 2 Teslas, and I was singing under her foot, on the floor.
Singing under her foot? Is that
she was on the couch. I was like I was all drunk, singing love song and Paradise or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
I love it.
Trying to. Yeah,
Interesting.
Things that happen when I'm drinking,
Sounds
What
Did,
a week.
did Dangerous Tories Sporting a Woody come up, or?
Hey now.
I was singing. Did you say you were singing into her foot?
That's what he said.
Yeah.
Boy, I questioned it. It's like, did he really say?
Love will find a way.
Licking in between her toes.
man. Just go away.
Hey,
The more you
I
ignore
think
me.
I like being scared.
The more you ignore me, the closer I get.
I love this character.
Exactly.
That's
If
so cool.
a double-decker bus was to crash right into us.
That'd be a great song to sing around a campfire.
Yeah. Some girls are bigger than others.
Some girls' mothers are bigger than other girls' mothers.
Girlfriend in the coma.
I know. Sing it with us.
Oh, to wish you an unhappy birthday.
I'm always drunk on Tuesdays, so that's when I sing. And then my voice is stopped for 3 days. I do it when I'm not drinking and I can't talk for
So what else is anybody saying? Is anybody even still watching, Gary?
Well, let's see. Mike says the 80s were about good times and access. The 90s, everything is going to get a little grungy. Chris from Record Talk says, Archie, come look at the TV. You need to get some of this Viagra. Stifle it, eat it, stifle. Gazing at the moon says, Mother Love Bone too.
yes, absolutely.
Ray says the next decade brings us the Black Crows.
Yeah.
Chris, I just found Faith No More the Real Thing used today. Pretty good for 1989. Although I'd go with Disintegration. And then he also says, I only tuned in 10 minutes ago. So that's about it.
You missed a lot of great albums.
Oh, you missed so much great conversation.
I think, and I what I'm going to pull away from this is I think Aaron should start the Wasp fan club.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Aaron is waving the Wasp flag. And
I
that's
love
not,
Wasp.
yeah, I agree with you. I like Wasp too.
Especially everything up to Crimson Idol. I like the stuff after, but everything up to Crimson Idol is amazing.
And didn't Blackie, isn't he like a Born Again now?
Yeah, but he is going to play Animal. Remember how he stopped playing Animal?
Ah.
He said that he owes it to the fans. He's going to start playing it again. But he is a born again Christian.
The Def Leppard cover.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Instead of their version, we're going to do the Def Leppard version. Yeah.
And I love Animal. Crowd.
Doom, doom, doom.
Wow.
I love how we're all like, well, I don't listen to Hysteria. I only listen to On Through the Night. But then every time a Hysteria song comes on, we're like, yeah, pour some sugar on me.
Well, we've all danced to that.
If you're gonna go grab a Def Leppard album, Hysteria is always on the radio. I don't know about you guys.
I love the song Hysteria.
I mean, it's like I'd definitely go grab another one. Power Mania. High and Dry.
83. I would have picked Peace of Mind. I don't know.
Oh yeah.
Great album. To Tame a Land is underrated.
83. What did I have? Dio, Holy Diver.
Ooh.
That's what I picked.
Boy, that's tough. Man.
Gary, as you can imagine, I picked Nebraska for 82.
Yeah. Well,
I know that's not a shock. For 83, I picked
Quite right, Mental Health.
Did you? No, that would have been a shock.
Now, Gary, I'm going to ask you a question about your shirt because I like Rush as well, but for whatever reason, Caress of Steel, I can't listen to the album all the way. Doesn't that have Bastille Day?
Yes.
I feel like it opens up really strong. And then for whatever reason, I can't get into like the Necromancer or anything like that. I mean, where does Caress of Steel fall for you in Rush's albums? I know that's a big question, but
it's definitely a top 5 album for me.
oh, it is. Okay. All right.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you've ever gotten high and listened to it.
No.
Because that might help a little bit on side 2. On that, I'm just saying.
And then there's the song I think I'm going bald.
Well, yeah, that song. Now, I will admit that's an oddball song.
Yeah.
Caress of Steel is his Ummagumma.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like why I like Ummagumma so much with several small species.
Yeah, I can't get into that song.
You got to take Gary's advice, and it helps.
Don't listen.
I'm gonna try that, from now on. Where it's like, hey, babe, want to listen to some Slayer? And Michelle's like, no. I'm like, want to try listen to it high?
And I think the code for getting high should be like, hey, babe, you want to set the controls for the heart of the sun?
God, yeah.
I learned that Ummagumma means to have sex. It's like a British slang. Yeah.
It's darn British.
Oh, I'm sorry. You guys already knew that. I thought I was saying something,
Everybody knows that.
Aaron, have you watched the Holmes documentary?
The what?
Chris Holmes, I assume.
No, I haven't yet, and I want to, but I've seen him. I've seen a couple interviews he's done. He's really good. He's kind of different now with his big beard. And
he's got cancer.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really bad too. He's fighting for his life at this point.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Wow.
He was married to Lita Ford, so.
He was. Yep.
He was. So was Tony Iommi at one point.
Yeah.
Wait. Tony Iommi was married to Lita Ford?
I think they were they married or were they just seeing each other?
Oh.
They might have just been dating for quite a while.
I can't see her dating a guy with a mustache.
Well, he also physically abused her a little bit. So.
Oh man.
That was during his, he was still heavy into drugs and shit at that point.
Chris, this is your opportunity to get with Lita Ford. I think that's okay.
Maybe you guys can go study.
Here's the thing. I mean, if Lita Ford came to me, I don't know. I'd have to think about that because I'm still holding out for Susanna Hoffs from the Bengals.
Oh, okay.
I don't blame you there.
She is still hot, and my dream is to come home from a day of hard work, right? And
I can see you thought this out.
Yeah, to walk in and Susanna Hoffs is standing there, and she just does that thing with her eyes, where she looks that way. And then she's like, "Hey, honey, you want to go walk like an Egyptian?" And then, I have it all played out in my mind,
I think you do because you came up with that pretty damn quick.
Very quick.
And then I walk in, I'm like, "Honey, it's been a manic Monday. Can we, I want to see things in a different light."
There you go. I was just gonna say that.
I have dreams.
Percolating. That was not spontaneous. Chris actually has that fantasy.
Yeah.
No, Susanna Hoffs. Ooh, man, she is hot.
She's hot. She is.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's like 60, and I mean you wouldn't know it.
No, she's a gilf. She is a gilf.
My dream is to come home and the house is empty and it's silent, and I'm like, holy shit, I have the place to myself. And then I go listen to music and no one bothers me.
So you want a silent lucidity.
I want silent lucidity.
Yeah.
Just for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. We all want. Never mind. I'm not even going there. Anywho.
Is anybody still here?
Yeah. Well, it's been fun, gang.
Thanks a lot.
Jeff's done.
Oh, you missed Mike. Mike got the line you missed. Let's go make some noise.
Yeah.
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 That's awesome. Yeah. Well, we had more people join us tonight than I think we've ever had before. So maybe we're on to something here. But, you know, I don't think anybody's going to watch a 3-hour video. So I think the people who are here tonight is as good as it gets.
I kind of like what we did tonight, though. I almost feel like we should pick one person each week, and we'll go through our picks, and then that person will pick which one is their favorite.
Yeah, I love it.
And then do the comments.
Yeah.
One person.
It's a great idea.
Cool. What if it's only Gary or something?
It could just always be me.
Yeah,
sorry, you don't get to fully talk about your pick.
You guys don't know, but I have a poster of Susanna Hoffs on my ceiling in my bedroom.
On your ceiling.
Yeah,
we know now.
And she's doing that eye thing.
It's like a 3D.
Yeah,
it's like the Mona Lisa where it follows you wherever you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Chris goes walking back and forth. He goes, "Are you still staring at me?"
Oh, Susanna, no, thank you. I'm not in the mood tonight, Susanna.
Oh, you'd find a way.
Yeah.
Sporting a Woody.
I mean, how awesome would that be? You come home and Susanna Hoffs is singing the song "Eternal Flame" on your couch.
There we go. I love how women are always singing to you, Chris, though, too, man. We have unlocked a secret sexual turn on for you. You like it when ladies serenade you.
I mean, yeah, who wouldn't, right? Especially Susanna Hoffs.
Very true.
Hopefully she's watching this.
Yeah, I'm sure after 3 hours, she's still.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's probably like, let's see, I can't think of anything better but to watch 5, middle-aged men talk about music from the 80s, Yeah,
the restraining orders will be coming tomorrow.
Well, if she watched, she's going to be mad because nobody picked any of their albums for their top album. So we apologize for that.
I did buy Different Light with a hype sticker a couple weeks ago, though.
I know. I need to find that. But with the hype, obviously.
Yeah. I've got it.
Right.
All right. We ever got to stop?
So Jeff, is the fun over? Or are we ending the video?
I think we are. I think, we've run a marathon here and, good job. I had a lot of fun, though. This is a great topic. Yeah. Maybe, at some point we'll do the 70s or 90s, but 80s is right there in my wheelhouse. So, well, have a great evening. Thank you, everybody who watched.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for joining us. Thanks for including your picks as well. And we'll see you all back here next week, same time.